No, I do not.
Virus.
This would be a special call meeting. I'm going to call this York County Council special call meeting to order. Our first order of business is a public hearing. Council to hold a public hearing and consider second reading of an ordinance adopting a public education facilities impact fee to be imposed on all new residential development in the Clover School District. Number 2, pursuant to York County Ordinance Number 2718, impact fee procedures to ensure that public education facilities will be available and adequate to accommodate the need for public education facilities expected to be generated from the school children in new residential developments in the school district, based on the district's level of service standards and capital improvements plan, to assign the cost of such public education facilities on a proportionate share basis to new residential development, with an estimated impact fee for a single-family detached dwelling unit at $15,035, an established impact fee for a multi-family dwelling unit at $7,430, and an established impact fee for a mobile home at $9,842, to authorize intergovernmental agreements between York County and the Clover School District and York County and the town of Clover, defining the respective rights, responsibilities, and obligations of the parties regarding the impact fee, to provide for a public hearing, and provide for other matters related thereto. Is there anyone here who would like to speak against?
Hand up back there, Mark.
Feel free to come on up. What we need is your name and address, and then you may speak. And if you can kind of line up with somewhat of social distancing, it would be appreciated.
Good evening. Thank you for your service. My name is Steve Brown. I am the owner and operator of Brown's Heating and Plumbing. My dad started the business in 1964, and I've been a part of the community all my life. Tonight I'm here to speak against the impact fee for two basic reasons. You may think the first reason, or the reason I'm here, is my son, who is 30, has planned to build a house on family land in the next 3 to 5 years. But when he heard of this ordinance going forward, he's tried to rush it up to get a permit pull before this may be enacted. Due to that, we got to thinking about it. You know, $15,000, that's a well, a septic tank, and part of an electrical system in a house his size. But that's not really why I'm here. The reason why I'm here is I don't think it's right. What are the two basic things all people need? One, food. The other is shelter. And to section out a small group of citizens, to put a burden on them for either of those two things, I think is fundamentally wrong. I think taxes, although somebody said this wasn't a tax, but I think if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and looks like a duck, it might be a duck. So this, in my mind, is a tax. So taxes should be spread evenly across the entire citizenship. The second reason I'm here is I was a part of the Clover School Board for 12 years, from 1996 to 2008. A part of my heart is in the Clover School District. I love the Clover School District. We tackled impact fees when I was on the board. And for various reasons, we did not go forward. The same thing is happening now. I feel like in the Clover School District, we have great support from the community to pass bonds. And you've got to pass bonds to build schools. I've been there. I've done the things that you have to do to assure that you pass your bonds. That's how you build schools. I think this is a mistake because as you look out here, all the contractors, subcontractors, homeowners that are going to build in this period of time, to me, I see a big red no sign sitting in the yard. And that's going to desperately impact the ability to pass bonds going forward. And for that reason, I really think it is a bad idea. Other than that, I think Where we go from here is in the hands of the community. We need the community support. So for those reasons, I would ask you to vote no, please. Thank you very much.
Do I need to state my name or anything? I'm Sean Sides. I live at 4997 Mill Creek Road in Clover. And I'll kind of give a little background. First, it's really hard to follow the words that were just spoken because I agree with them 100%. We moved here just over 2.5 years ago, just about 2 years ago, from Texas. We looked for an area that would be conducive for our family. We wanted a place that we had more land, a little quieter, not quite as congested. We lived in North Texas around Dallas, very similar to a lot of folks here might be familiar more with like Atlanta and that type of thing. And I would be honest with you, we love it. We came here with our son who was able to graduate luckily enough in December for Clover High School, so he got to actually have graduation. And you know, right now we live on about a half acre of land. We have a really nice house. It's a little low, it's very large, and we're kind of outgrowing it. We're to the point now where we're kind of looking more of an empty nester. Our daughter finished up 4 years in the U.S. Navy and came back and got accepted at Winthrop, so she's been going to school there. And we started to talk about, you know, we really need to downsize. Since we've been here, you know, as I said, we've really enjoyed it. My wife did a tremendous amount of volunteer work at Daniel Stowe Botanical Gardens. You all might be familiar with that. And then had an opportunity to get hired on there. So last year she was able to do the holiday lights and work on those there, if you've seen those in the past. Well, she's no longer working there, as a lot of people. And in the course of working there, she really did a number on her knee, so she had to get a partial knee replacement this last June. And I know 2020 has not been good for a lot of people. But I kind of bring it up because it's really starting to impact us because she can't work right now. She's got a partial knee replacement. We're looking to want to downsize into a smaller home. My daughter has just been informed that she's going to be redeployed for the U.S. Navy because of COVID. They've been so impacted that she now needs to go back out. She's going to have to go work on ships and things like that. So we're having a lot of changes to our life. So we went and purchased some land in the county because we do love the area. Now we're coming to find out that if we don't really get on the ball and sell our house, which we would have loved to have put on the market this summer, but because of COVID, we felt that that really wasn't the right opportune time. So now we sell the house. We get ready to put the house on the market hopefully soon after my daughter goes back into the Navy. We're going to have to start evaluating now, can we really do this? So we want to downsize to a smaller house. We want to stay in the area, but we're going to get hit with a $15,000 bill. We're already here. Our son graduated from high school. We've already been through the school system. We're not putting an impact on the school system by building a new home. The difference is that I have an employer that I could really go somewhere else. I've chosen to stay here. Now I'm having to evaluate whether or not that is the right choice or not. Can I afford to stay here? Do I want to build a house here? So, I mean, that's one of the considerations that I really want you all to think about, please. One of the other things is, you know, I understand that there are a lot of folks here that have lived here for decades, that have probably lived their whole entire life here in this area. And then there's those that have come in the last few years that have probably been part of that burden to the school district. I understand that, but the choices that y'all are presenting to do this with an impact fee, it's kind of the whole idea of closing the door behind you. I mean, you're basically saying, we don't want more people to come here because now we're going to charge this expense to everybody. And it's not arbitrary, it's punitive. Because for folks that live here that do want to do some of the things like stay and build a home, they can't do that now. Or they're going to really have to make that choice and debate that. Now, I'm not, you know, I've been listening to one of the comments that was made by the last gentleman about the bonds, and I keep asking myself, I'm not hearing about that, and I am new to the area. I've only been here a couple of years, but I don't understand why bonds are not being discussed versus a $15,000 fee. I don't see how, in this current environment, you're going to get people coming in here wanting to build homes and have that additional $15,000 fee, how many homes would have to be built to get the money you need to help the schools? Schools are built with bonds, as the other gentleman said. I don't understand that. I can't figure out the math in my head. Someone would have to explain that to me. And I guess the other part is that I realize this has been done in Fort Mill. This is not Fort Mill. This is not the kind of growth. You do not have an interstate flowing right through the middle of your town. This is not going to happen here. It's not going to work. It mathematically does not work. And I'd love to have someone explain to me how it does. And I guess the last thing is, I haven't decided on a builder yet for our home. I'm not sure if we're going to. But I'm sure there's builders here in the audience. And if there's any one of you that is willing to build my home and waive that $15,000 fee, I would love to talk to you after this meeting. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Scott Elam, Lot 5, Greek Road. And I want to take a different approach than the two people that spoke before me. I want to reference the capital improvement plan and development of impact fees. This was put out by, I believe it's Bilger and Thistle and Bish, one of those, whoever the consultant firm was. My issue with the impact fee is the logic, the math. And the math doesn't make sense. Because if you read their median household income for their cost analysis, it's on page 29 if you have that report. I'll let you get there. It says the median household income is $65,000 for the district. The district has 35%, the school district has 35% of the students in poverty. So how can you build an impact fee off a $65,000 median income variable when 35% of the district is in poverty? The second problem that I have with the math is years 26 through 31 are straight line based for growth. So what you're assuming is you're going to have a ramp up over the next 4 to 5 years. And then all of a sudden, you're just going to do a straight line analysis from 26 to 31. And this is all in their report also. So what they're estimating is that at the end of this, there's going to be between, I believe it's 9,300 to 10,000 kids, essentially of between 12 and 1,500 kid growth. And in the last 6 years, the school district will be looking at all these costs, if you include the 2014 bond referendum of $62 million, of $250 million to build 4 schools. So the gentleman was asking about the math. If you look at this, if you look at the math, what's also in their report is it's going to cost $198 million to build schools. They're looking to make about $50 million on impact fees. That means that you have to have between 3,000 and 4,500 mixed units of mobile homes, houses, and apartments to hit that number. What this variable doesn't take into account is what if there's another recession? Because once you make that $50 million down payment, you're going to borrow, per their report, $148 million on bonds. So what they're looking to do is they're looking to subsidize $50 million with impact fees to reduce the burden on the current district shareholders. So to me, this makes no sense, because if you were going to do that, why wouldn't you put it to a vote? In 2014, the vote it passed, but it wasn't completely popular. And I think that's where I struggle with the impact fees. I'm not saying that growth isn't real. I believe growth is real. And should there be a fee? Probably, absolutely. But if the average cost of a mobile home is $70,000 to $110,000, why would you put a 10% tax on somebody trying to buy a mobile home? I mean, are we trying to make York County completely unaffordable? And that seems to be the path that we're going. Everyone references Fort Mill impact fee, Fort Mill impact fee. If you read the report, Fort Mill has added 1,000 students. Clover School District has not added 1,000 students. Not over the last 2 years, not over the last 3 years. They have not added that many, so the growth is not as exponential as the Fort Mill School District. Also, I do not believe that the tax base in Fort Mill is the same as it is for the Clover School District. So from that, this has nothing to do with what I think or how I feel. This is all about their logic. And the math is completely flawed. The assumptions, I believe, are completely off. And there's a bunch of variables that nobody took into consideration when they put this together. And from the offset, I've been to almost every public meeting about this since last May. And the attitude of representatives of the consultant that put this report together and representatives of the Clover School District has probably been some of the most arrogant and at times condescending things that I have heard. In the May meeting, the consultant says, if you can't afford the $15,000, don't build the house. Okay, well, maybe I can afford the $15,000. I just don't want to give it away for nothing, right? At the Clover School District meeting, the superintendent made the reference that if you don't want to pay the fee, don't move to the district. So if this is the attitude of the Clover School District toward the community that actually supports the school system, then what does that say about the process? So if this passes at the rates that are in, then York County, Clover in particular, will become completely unaffordable. And if that's what you're shooting for, we're going to get it. Thank you for your time.
And I will add, that microphone works
Okay.
just as well as the other, so yeah.
Okay, is it on? Is it on? Okay. My name's Jonathan Huffstetler. I live at 1335 Spring Lake Road in York, South Carolina, obviously. I'm 39 years old. I'm from this area. When I say this area, I wasn't always across this side of the border. I've lived in Gaston County most of my life. Been in Clover for the last, 6, 7 years. There's two things that I always have heard my entire life about Clover. You know, you move across the line for two reasons. Probably everybody in this room can name those two reasons of why you move from Gaston County to York County. The first one you always hear is taxes. Taxes are cheaper. The second one is the school systems are greater. They're great school systems. Those are the two things you'll hear over and over and over. I would propose that instead of hitting everybody with a $15,000 fee to build a home, because I'm a builder, let me back that up as well. It's a family business. It's actually my father-in-law. He's Carol Norman. I know probably a lot of people know him from this area. He's been building his entire life here. He grew up here. He's 75 now. He's built tons of homes in this area. I'm kind of carrying that business on, and it is quite a hit to look at a $15,000 bill to build a house. Right now, he's got land that we're looking to develop. Right now, it's considered farmland. It's got the road cut in, everything's there. We pay $15 a year in taxes on that farmland. I've got lots in Gaston County as well. To answer your question, I will not build your house without that $15,000 fee in Clover. However, if you want to come to Gaston County, we'll do that. That's my point. If I've got lots here, if I've got options in other places, we can pay $15 a year and ride four-wheelers on that land if we want to and not get any tax money from it. Or we could put 20 lots on there. We're looking at $300,000 for 20 lots at $15,000 each. So we've got to pay $300,000 for 20 sheets of paper and have nothing else to show for it. My suggestion would be I think when the numbers were ran at one of the other meetings, I think average taxes per house is $2,700 a year. I would say increase taxes across the board, which I think roughly came out to about $400 per, and this is average again, per household. So who cares? All those people I've heard my whole life, if taxes are cheaper here in South Carolina, if they're a little bit more expensive, Let's pay a little bit more. It's still less than Gaston County. Let's pay a little bit more, $400 average across the board for everybody. You're still getting a great school system. You're getting cheaper taxes still, and everybody share the burden instead of us. Because I think, I don't know if my father-in-law is going to get up, but if I can speak for him, I'd rather pay $15 a year for taxes, and we'll keep that as four-wheeler land. We'll drive on it. But otherwise, again, if you want to come to Gaston County, we'll take care of it there if this bill's passed. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Chris Muncie, 725 Flamingo Road in Clover. Been here all my life. Thank y'all for what y'all do. Thank you to the school district. I agree with a lot of what's been said tonight. And also, I am a builder. No, I won't build your house and absorb that $15,000 either. I don't know exactly which direction this may go, but I agree that the school system needs money. They need the money to build the programs, to build the schools. Clover School District is awesome. Everybody knows that. But I don't agree that you tax new people coming into town who are building a new resident, moving into buying a piece of property, who's struggling to get a mobile home, modular home, whatever. Those fees are substantial for those type of people. Some of the numbers have already been said about the median household income, the percentage of poverty that's in the school system. One of the proposals that's come to mind, and it may be too late to really revisit this, is there be some sort of tax increase, school tax, that is associated with how many kids you have in the district. The federal government does it with tax rebates. I'm sure there's a way that something could be derived to have if you have children in the school system, you pay a little bit more extra in your taxes each year to help support that. Being in the housing industry, I've been here 16 years doing this, there's going to be a crash. It's coming sooner than we probably think. Right now, material prices are on the rise like you've never seen before. Lumber is astronomically increasing, and then projections show that's not going to slow down anytime soon. So to implement this fee, along with the other burdens that homeowners are having to pay with labor increase, material increase, is too much all at one time. The other problem I feel like that there is with having a per unit, per multifamily, whatever you want to call it, is when that crash comes, there's still kids in school. There's still structures that need to be built. There's still new schools that need to be built. If we have it based on a per kid, if there's a way to do that, if we have it based on per kid, when that crash comes, the district is still collecting money to help pay down that bond at a faster rate. If I understand right, that's part of what we're trying to do, is we're getting bond money, but we're wanting to pay it down at a quicker rate, which is what these impact fees are supposed to help do. Well, when the crash comes, if there's no new houses, there's no new apartments, there's no new kids, there's no new permits, there's no new fees being collected. But if it's on a different level, a per child, per household, whatever, the kids that are already having an impact on the district, on the school system, the district is still able to collect those fees, even during the crash, and will be able to help pay those bonds down earlier. Like I said, I don't know if it's too late to revisit something like that, but I think the flat rate of a $15,000 for a single family, how can we say that it's okay for somebody who's going to build a $200,000 house versus somebody who's going to build a $2 million house? You got a house that may have 5 kids in it versus a new house that doesn't have any kids in it. My parents are up in age, and they may look to downsize, sort of like the other gentleman. They've got a 4-bedroom house. If my parents decide to build on family land and they want to downsize, they're going to take that burden of this new impact fee, whereas that family of 5 who's affecting the school system, they're not having to do anything other than what we're already doing. So I think that's a little bit unfair, and I think the impact fees that are presented right now need to be revisited. Don't get me wrong, I think we need to do something to help generate some funds to go towards these new schools. But the way that it's proposed right now, I think it could be revisited. Thank you.
Thank you, Munson. Johnny Nealons, I live at 3100 Filbert Highway. Nice to see y'all again. I'm a builder in Clover, been here my entire life as well. And to follow up with the other builders, I won't build your house and waive $15,000 fee. Can't do it. Thanks to the council again for having us and letting us speak and kind of just let you know our thoughts. And thanks to the school district, especially the superintendent, I know they've been working really, really hard to try to get these kids back in school. That means a lot. I know y'all working hard, the teachers, janitors, school bus drivers, I mean everybody. I know it's been tough and I appreciate it. I have three precious daughters in the school district. Of course, I'm here to speak in opposition to the fee, and I would just like to again give y'all an example, a personal example of why it's not fair. I'm not going to get into much of the numbers and things like that, but it's pretty simple. My mom's 72 years old. She is considering building a new house in the Bethany community, which is west of Clover. She's probably going to if I build her house, it'll probably be 13, 14, maybe 1,500 square foot house. She is, of course, on a fixed income. She retired from the Clover School District. She worked for over 32 years for the Clover School District. If she moves out to family land, which has been in the family since the records show, you can look it up, McGill family in Bethany, my mom would have to pay a $15,000 fee to build a 1,300 square foot house. It's just not right. It's just common sense. It doesn't make sense that she would have to pay $15,000, but if someone else in the Clover School District were to build a 10,000 square foot house, they pay the same fee. It just doesn't make sense, and that's kind of my only point. I mean, I'm in the same boat, thinking about moving out to family land. I've been here my whole life. I'm not half as old as my mother, but you know, if I have to pay it, I don't think that's right either. I do have 3 children in the district, and I want to pay my fair share, and I support a fee, just a reasonable fee. Us as local builders, I don't know if there's any big national guys in here or not, but the local builders, we don't impact the schools and the roads and utilities. I mean, most of our building we don't impact utilities at all. We're on, septics and wells. So it's just, we're in support. I'm in support of a fee, just not a $15,000 fee, a more reasonable fee to, move forward. We know the school needs money. We've always supported the school, like Steve Brown said. I mean, it's, we've always, Clover, they've never had a bond referendum turned down, never. And it's just like, for some reason, we're catching the burden of all this as builders, and it's just not right. And not just as builders, as people like my mother that may decide late in life to go out on family land and build a new home. So just hope y'all consider that, and I do appreciate your time and consideration tonight, and that's all I got. Thank you.
Anyone else against?
My name's John Harding. I live at 5945 Old York Road in York. Owner of Harding Custom Homes. Been here my whole life, a lot like Johnny. My mother retired from the Clover school system. Want to give you a little bit of insight. So I have a customer in Fort Mill, and with the impact fee and the stormwater fees, and the building permit fees. By the time we got all that paid and everything done, we were about at $24,000 before we ever broke ground. Now that's a problem. That's a big problem. So when you think about this and you think about how it affects different people, like some of the other speakers have said, mobile homes, smaller homes, larger homes, you really need to consider that. Think about how I know myself and the guys that work with me, you know, we eat lunch in York County. We buy products from York County. So that all affects how we do business. I have customers currently that now they're not looking in York County. They're looking in other counties. I have one that I've been working with for several months that started out looking in Fort Mill. He was not aware of the impact fee. Once I told him about the impact fee, he started looking in Lancaster County. So, you know, we build in 2 states, 8 different counties, and I think you really need to consider the big picture of this, of how this is going to affect everybody, not just the builders. This is going to affect the suppliers, you know, the farm service centers where we buy seed and straw to make sure these lots don't erode, the food that we buy in the county. So it's not just the builders that are being affected by this. And if we take our business elsewhere, if not on our accord, but if the customers that are coming to us say, hey, you know, we don't want to pay this fee, we want to go somewhere else. You know, Chester County's close, Lancaster County, Cherokee County. You know, I was born and raised in this county, I live in this county, I love this county, but these are all things that we need to consider before we enact this fee of, you know, $15,000. There is a good way to do this, but $15,000 is just too much. Thank you.
Anyone else against?
Hello, I'm Joe Verson. I live at 5605 Creole Road, in the Clover School District. I have addressed this body before on this issue, but I do real estate appraisal for my living, and $15,000 on many of the homes would be very difficult for me. I am not, the name of my company is not Value Finders. I don't know how to incorporate a $15,000 fee when it doesn't add value to the home. Maybe it'll all work out fine. I would volunteer to the school district to work on a bond referendum and call all my friends and see if we can't continue raising money the way it's been done before. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name's Chuck Dome. I live at 4095 River Oaks Road in Clover. My wife and I own CWD Construction. We've been building in York County and Clover for over 30 years. Have been real happy to build here, to live here. We've raised 2 boys in York County schools, so I understand the importance of the good school system, the need for money. The other speakers have done a great job expressing my concerns, so I'm not going to take a lot of your time. I just want to say I do not support the maximum fee. I think a much smaller, reasonable fee would be fair. We've talked about fairness to customers. The majority of customers that I build for now are empty nesters who don't have kids and who are not impacting the school system. But nevertheless, I understand the need, and I think a much smaller and fairer fee would be preferred. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Brian Grissom, 2082 Fairhill Circle in Rock Hill. I'm a local builder. I also represent the HBA of York County. I'm the sitting president right now. Of course, we're here tonight to discuss the fee. I am not in favor of a $15,000 fee. I am definitely in favor of helping the school district out, do something to a more common ground, lowering the fee specifically, drastically, with my fellow builders and I. You know, a lot of people are here in support, so I'm here to say I'm in support of a fee, but not $15,000. I have 3 properties that I am building off of Liberty Hill Road. I haven't started yet. I'm actually in the process of getting it finished developed. I didn't budget a $15,000 fee for each one of those properties. I am in favor for a lower fee, of course. I just think with this pandemic, the uncertainty of everything, I thought would be to suspend this till a later date, honestly. I don't know if you received anything earlier from Martin Nix, who is the head of the HBA of South Carolina. He sent several speaking points, you know, in regards to the Fort Mill issues, the Tischer-Bice issues, and I don't have time enough to go over it, and I'm not a mathematical genius on everything in there, so it's very in-depth. We have some certain issues that we need to discuss on that, and I think further impact of you know, these forums before we do a third reading on anything we should all come together on this and kind of regroup maybe in smaller groups instead of this large capacity as we're in right now. But like I said, I am in favor of some fee to help the school district. It's not $15,000. I don't have a number. That's y'all's job to do. I will help do anything I can to come to a number that we can all agree on. You know, I'm not good at public speaker. I'm sorry about that. So excuse me. I just don't want us to get to another Fort Mill issue. I want us to all work together. I want us to be one community. You know, this is a lot of money to go to courts. It's a lot of money to do stuff like that. I mean, like I said, we're in favor. We just need to work on some similar agreement to lower everything. That's the biggest thing, is lower everything. Just like if I'm not going to build your house if that fee's not included in it either. So, you know, with my properties off of Liberty Hill, I'm going to have to, if this fee is enacted, I'm going to have to pass that on to the homeowners, which is again going to increase taxes somehow, somewhere, some way. Somebody's going to have to pay for it. You know, with the Tischer-Bice study, you know, there's the number of students per household is wrong. A 2020 study done by NAHB indicates fewer children among households moving into new construction compared to existing units. The fee study should be lowered to account for this. Do the figures in the study include the purchase price of new land or land that is already owned by the school district? In fact, we've seen the same issue in York County impact fee, of course, in Fort Mill. The lawsuit related to that is now under appeal. We have questions about the assumptions of the study. Assume 20% down payment. In reality, we have 11% down payment in 2016, and for people under 35 years of age, it's roughly 8%. Right now, we're having increased lumber tariffs. Our lumber is up by like 40% right now to build a single-family home because of the pandemic and the short supply. You know, our workforce is very limited right now because of the COVID as well. You know, in York County, before we even pull a permit, we're already paying about $20 a square foot just for the land to be cleared, which is a lot. The projected growth versus the impact of the increased fee on growth needs to be taken into effect, of course. In York County, for every $1,000 increase in the median new home price, 1,044 households will be priced out. That's more than 14,000 York County families that would have been qualified to purchase a home in York County before the impact fee goes into effect, that would no longer be qualified to purchase a home if the impact fee is put in place. There's a lot of points that we can go over. I'm time limited. We have a lot of people that's going to talk about different points, But I am in favor of a fee, just very low, not 15,000. And I thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Marissa Harris. I reside at 1766 South Parham Road in York County. I'm not a builder. I'm a regular homeowner. I'm a mom of a second grader. I'm a business owner in York County and a current resident whose new construction will not impact the schools any more greatly than I am currently. When I started the process of looking to build a home over a year ago, I was in a budget of $350,000 to build a simple one-story home, 2,300 square feet, on property that I own. I'm currently in a mad dash to submit my building permit to beat the impact fee. To build that same 2,300 square foot home, simple, not fancy at all, I'm now looking to spend $420,000 on land that I own. That cost is the supply cost that's drastically going up. You tack another $15,000 on top of that, and I'm now having to decide to not waterproof my crawl space. Things that would improve my family's health because of a fee. I drastically and greatly support our school district. I moved here for our school district from across the bridge. I am okay paying extra money. I support the schools on the side any way I can, and I will pay that in tax equally with everyone else and proudly do it without one complaint. But at $15,000, I am carrying more than my share. Because of those fees, I've had to have a conversation about looking into Rock Hill. If my husband stays in Clover, in our current home, I can relocate 5 minutes down the road into a home where I won't have this impact fee and my son can go to the same school and everything can be fine. I do think that we will be encouraging people to move outside of this area in good construction with our local builders, construction where there is land, there are trees. You will still have your corporate builders, your big builders that will come in and clear cut everything if those changes aren't made, but we will lose a lot of our local builders to the counties that don't offer this fee. I want you to consider the single family or the single income families where $15,000 is a drastic amount of money to come up with. As an owner of a company that manages homeowners associations, I am already seeing delinquencies on the rise from COVID. It is true that people's livelihood have been impacted. If it's not because of job loss, it is because people have had to leave their employment to watch their children. Again, I'm very grateful that our school has offered an opportunity to get our children back into the building because that is a real problem. We are forcing our families in that situation to choose between childcare or education and safety for their children. So I think we're already seeing those impacts from homeowners in my business. I wonder if the report would also take into account the fact that COVID is here and that recession may come sooner than was ever anticipated because people are being impacted now. COVID was, I would have to guess, that could not have been included. I will just wrap up to say that as many of the other speakers, I support an impact fee at a much lesser amount. I equally support a tax that's spread across everyone else that's more fair to the entire community and everyone who is impacting the school district, because the facts are the only people building homes are not the ones that are solely impacting the school district. Thanks for everything you do. I do appreciate you, and I appreciate our school board, and hope that you're able to find a better resolution than the $15,000.
Anyone else against?
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Joe Baird. I live on Baird Road. Like Mr. Nealons and Mr. Muncie who spoke earlier, I live on a family property that's a century farm. I'm a fifth-generation resident. I consider myself a stakeholder in York County. My predecessors, my ancestors have served York County by serving on the county commission, serving on the school board, serving on various election boards and volunteer committees. When Bethel School was built in the late 20s, if you're familiar with Bethel, it's built where three properties came together. And when the school was built, those three property owners donated the land to the school district to have that new school built there. That's the sense of community that I come from and that the people in the community come from. As a personal example, my daughter and son-in-law built a house just recently within the last 3 years. And as an aside, I think there's two kinds of people who build homes. One checks and sees how much money they can borrow, and they borrow the full amount, and then they start struggling to make the payments. Second type of home builder budgets and decides what kind of home they can build and not have to struggle to make the payments. And that's where my son-in-law and daughter fell. $15,000 would have drastically impacted the type of home they could have built. And that further impacts the builders, and it impacts the income on the builders' employees. The $15,000 that's a hunk of money. I've had one of the proponents of the impact fee argue with me about that. He said, "You mean $15,000 would have stopped them from building a house?" No, it wouldn't have stopped them from building a house, but it would have stopped them from building the house they wanted to build. And that's going to be a factor with a lot of people. A reasonable impact fee would be palatable to just about everybody here tonight. But $15,000 is the only number I've heard thrown out ever since they started talking about impact fees. Fort Mill started talking about a $15,000 impact fee, and Clover jumped right on board with it. And I think the budget was made, or the $15,000, everybody, y'all do budgets every year. Sometimes you put down a number and then you work backwards to it. And I think that's what, I've read that report, and I think that's a lot of what happened. There was a lot of reverse economics going on there. So think about this and charge the school district with coming up with something a little more reasonable. Thank you.
Anyone else against?
My name's Carol Norman. I live at 767 Pine Haven Circle. And I've been building houses, I guess, since 1965. So, and I've got 3 sons. They're all in the housing business. I got nephews. They're in it. So I'm opposed to the impact fee. And pretty much everybody else said, you know, what I'd have to say anyway. But I thank y'all for listening to me. But I'm opposed to it. Thank you.
Good evening. Tim Heline, 2674 Cozy Cove Drive. I'm speaking tonight as a resident of the Clover School District. I am own a real estate company and to develop country land, a lot in the Clover School District. I'm just speaking as a resident and a parent of 4 kids. We're Catholic. We chose to send our kids to Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, and we sacrificed to do that. That was our choice. We believe in education big time. I believe the Clover School District it's awesome. I think $15,000 as a parent, you know, if I was moving into the district knowing that, I'd be buying a used house if I was bringing kids into the area to save money. I believe the schools need help. They need money. I believe, if, like the one lady said, I'll support a bond all day long and won't complain a bit on my house or paying that for my house. And my kids they're all gone and on their own. But really, I think doing a bond and sharing the love, I mean, spreading it out is much more fair than picking on a select group. If you do choose to do an impact fee, I agree, as the others said, it really needs to be a lot lower amount than what's being considered, because that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for everybody. But thank you very much for your time.
Anyone else? Anyone else against?
My name's John Rim, and I've been building here for 40 years. All right, my mother-in-law wants me to build her a home. She can't build it till next year. She can't afford $15,000. I got 3 customers right now running scared. I'm bidding on their homes, all right? They can't afford the impact fee. They might be able to afford it if it's cheaper, but I went and told them the truth. You're gonna have to pay $15,000 more maybe. I don't find this fair at all. I think it should be done a different way. I think you need to find a different way. Thank you.
Anyone else? Then would anyone like to speak in favor? And I think the school district is going to go first and give us a presentation.
And as we are getting ready to pull the presentation up, I'll introduce myself. I'm Sheila Quinn, the very, very proud superintendent of Clover School District. This is the beginning of my 3rd year, and it's an interesting year to be starting school. We did start yesterday, with 8,632 students, and they're not all on campus at the same time, but we're very, very glad to see our students back. And I have worked for 18 years at Rock Hill School District, and I know how fine that school district is as well. I have a tremendous amount of respect for York 1 and Fort Mill, but I think in the room tonight you saw exactly what makes Clover School District very, very special. We are arguably one of the best school districts in the state, and it's because of a lot of the people that you heard speak tonight. And even though we don't necessarily agree on this issue, you could see how much they are a part of our community and how much they are a part of our school district. And so I just want to say openly how much I appreciate all of them, particularly our local builders who build very beautiful homes, who send us very beautiful children. And so I do want to say that. I know, again, that we don't always agree on this particular issue, but I want you to know how much I respect you and the work that you and the support that you have given Clover School District. I do want to talk you through tonight some of the rationale for an impact fee, and I know you have the unenviable task, Council, of figuring out what that amount should be, and I'll talk a little bit about how we have settled on going for the amount, the maximum allowable that we have. And we understand that you have the difficult task of trying to balance the things that you know and the things that you're doing to manage growth, and we have the maybe unenviable task just to be ready for that growth. And that is really our premise. It's not to be for or against anything about growth. It's really to be ready. and to make sure that the standard that people have come to expect for Clover School District remains very, very high, and we take that very seriously. So if you'll advance to the next slide. I have put this up, and the dates have moved a little bit on this bottom section because we have been at this work of trying to work towards an impact fee for the better part of 2 years. We started in phase 1 doing all the appropriate studies about how fast we're growing, what our growth rate is, what our capacity inside of our schools are, how many students or seats can we fit in each of our schools, and looking at some projections on when we are going to have to build schools. We used consultants to help us do that. We don't do that work by ourselves because there are people with better expertise that can project building costs for us, people that can do the demographics and the growth studies. And so you will see some of those names like Dale Holden and the Cummings Management Group. And I'm joined tonight by Carson Bice, who is our consultant who worked with us to develop the impact fee. And he is the same consultant who worked with Fort Mill. We then began phase 2. Phase 2 was the better part of last year, the end of the first year, 2018-19, and all of last year, really trying to be very transparent in our community. We did not want this to sneak up on anyone because we do have so much respect for our community and how they have supported us. We did multiple public hearings, multiple presentations. We were joined by our county council representatives, and I want to thank Robert Winkler and Allison Love for being a part of those and helping us host those and bringing your weight and your gravity into getting people to show up. So I appreciate that very much. We met with all of our local builders, not all of them, but a number of them as well, and again, tried to work on how we can do this in a way that doesn't hurt them and doesn't hurt us. And so we're trying to still find that sweet spot. And then finally, we have made it through the Planning Commission, and we are now here tonight with you. And we thank you, Council, for your time and for the weight of this decision you have to make and the deliberations that you'll go through to reach a resolution, whatever that may be. If you'll hit the next slide, please. So my job tonight as a part of the presentation is to talk to you about our growth story, what's happening with Clover School District and our community as a result of growth. So if you'll advance the slide, please. This is our school district in the 7 elementary school zones. Those are the colors that you see. In 2018-19, when this study was done, these were the dots on the map of all the already approved planned developments coming to Clover School District in the next 5 years. At the time, in 2018-19, when this was done, this represented 4,300 new homes coming to the district. We know that that number is actually low because there is a development that's not included in this that could potentially have up to 2,500 homes in it. So that's not a part of these numbers. Some of it's reflected here. And again, I don't know what's going to happen with that development, and that's not in my purview to know right at this point. But we do believe that that number could be potentially higher than the 4,300 at the time. Next slide. This is our school district again, same school district, but this time it's divided by our 2 middle schools. So the blue area is Clover Middle School, and the kind of pink area is Oak Ridge Middle School. You can see we also carved out the town of Clover, which represents about 14% of our district, and the unincorporated area of Lake Wiley, which is what the 2010 census designated as Lake Wiley. And so the vast majority of our district is called the other unincorporated areas in the study that you've looked at. So I just wanted to be sure when we talk about Clover versus Lake Wiley, our district is bigger than those 2 areas, but those 2 areas are a part of our district. If you'll advance to the next slide. This is the study that Dale Holden did to project our growth rate. And so you can see from this that in 2018-19, we were at 8,056 students. And I know the audience can't see that, but that's that little red dot in the middle. By the very next school year, the beginning of the next school year, we were at 8,302. So we had a growth of about 300 kids, and right now that says 8,596. That's because I pulled it last Monday to get it ready for you guys, but today we are at 8,632 students, so another 300 student growth. The lines that you see after that red dot going up for the next 10 years are our growth projections, and the purple line is what's called the cohort survival line. That is when a 5-year-old becomes 6 and a 6-year-old becomes 7 and they move up the grades. So that is the most conservative line because that doesn't assume a lot of new people coming. The blue line up top is the line that factors in the 4,300 new homes and the number of students on average that move into those homes, and we will have a slide about that in just a little bit. So it tries to factor in what your growth rate could be in the next 10 years with new development coming. And as you know, new development is a moving target. So 4,300 homes one year looks very different in the next year, so because new developments are approved and proposed. So I call that the cone of uncertainty between that blue dotted line and that purple line, because we could be anywhere between there. It's hurricane season, so we're kind of used to that. The closer you get to the year that you're in, the more definite those numbers become. But it looks, and what has proven to bear the last 3 years that I've been with Clover School District, is we're growing between 2.5% to 3%, maybe a little over 3% per year, about 300 students on average. So Fort Mill adds about 1,000 students. We're adding about 300 students. So over the last 3 years, we're close to adding 1,000 students. If you'll go to the next slide. This is what's called a heat map. Our Cummings and Property Management Group helped us work on our heat map. Dale Holden also walked every inch of every school building to look at how that space is used and to project how much capacity or seats in the building that we have for students. So if you'll hit the button, this is the school year that we're in, and again, most of you probably can't see the size or the capacity that's in the blue column, but in 2019-20, which is the school that's outlined here, it's projecting how many students we would have. And if it's in the yellow, that means that that building is more than 80% capacity. If it's in the red, it's in more than 95% capacity. And if it's in the green, it's got less than 80%. So there's a little bit more room to grow. What's interesting, if you'll hit the next thing, is that our actual numbers of students, most of those numbers are 2 years above. Some of them aren't. Some of them are right where they're projected to be. If you look at the high school, it's projected out another 2 years. Its average, its numbers of enrollment are 2 years from now. Our middle schools are way out to 23, 24, because that's where we have the least amount of capacity. A couple of years ago, we started seeing the growth in Lake Wiley explode, and Oak Ridge Middle School became a concern, and so we took a whole another elementary school and moved it over to Clover Middle. And now you can see Clover Middle School and Oak Ridge Middle School are both at over 95% capacity. So we're going to have an issue in both of those schools, even though on that heat map they're not in the red. Where their numbers are now, they are in the red. If you'll click to the next slide. Oh, sorry, and the last animation is, if we do nothing, if we do not build schools in the next 10 years, we'll be at 101% capacity across all of our elementary schools. We'll be at 116% capacity in our middle schools, and we'll be at 101% capacity in our high schools. So we wanted to give you some more updated numbers because, again, our study, we've been at this process to get to you for 2 years. And so some of our numbers are from 2 years ago. This is actually pulled from last May, this past May that we just had, 2020. And this shows you the number of lots that were proposed to be built and already approved, and the number remaining. And I believe that number says 3,584. Again, I'm struggling to see it as well. So there are 3,584 homes still to be built in Clover School District. Again, this is on the Lake Wiley side, or that eastern side of our district. If you'll hit the next slide, you can't see this one quite as well. This was from August. Allison Harvey just provided this from the town of Clover. There are 356 more homes to be built in Clover. If you add those two together, and that's the town, that's that small town of Clover that represents 14% of our district. There are other homes on the western side that are coming and already approved, but they're not reflected in this data yet. But if you look at just the numbers that are, the homes that are, you're looking at 3,940 homes in the next 5 years potentially that we could see added to our district. And again, our position on that is not to be for or against it. Our position on that is to be ready for it and to have the funds that we need to build the kind of schools that the families moving here to Clover School District will expect. So if you'll hit the next slide. So our board began to look at all of these data and think about what it is they needed to do to be ready to develop capacity. If we do nothing, we're going to be over capacity. So we've got to begin to do something. And most of you know, if you've been in the school business, we can't build a school overnight. We can't raise the funds overnight and build the next day. So we have to plan for that in 3 and 4 years out, particularly if there's something as large as a high school that you're going to need in your future. That takes some time. The board determined that we were going to need additional capacity at the elementary school level. We were going to need something done in 6 through 12, and they were very thoughtful about how to handle our 6 through 12 issue, grades 6 through 12, that we were going to need some additional land and additional equipment. And by equipment, what they were focused on were school buses. The state of South Carolina provides some school buses, most of our school buses, but they don't provide our activity buses, and quite frankly, they don't provide enough buses for a growing district. They base your bus allotment on the year before, and when you're growing by 300 kids per year, you often find yourself with too few buses, so you have to then buy your own. And so we do have buses that we have purchased as a part of being able to provide transportation for our students, as well as our activity buses that transport our sports teams. So the board looked at those 4 needs, and they determined, if you'll hit the next slide, that, and some of the animations, some of the font has changed, but I think you can still read that. They decided that we would need a new elementary school by the year 24-25. That would be our 8th elementary school. It would be built in on the Lake Wiley side or the eastern side where we're experiencing the growth, particularly in the Oak Ridge Elementary School Zone and the Crowders Creek School Zone. They also decided that they could use the current 9th grade academy, which is something we did in our last bond referendum, was to give our footprint of our high school a bigger footprint so that we could stay one high school longer. We actually love being a one high school town. It's wonderful on Friday nights. But they felt like they wanted to expand the life of that one high school longer, so they made a 9th grade academy. But down the road, if we weren't thoughtful about how to use that building, it could end up being an extra building. So they decided to convert it back to a middle school in 25-26, which, as you know, our middle school capacity is where we're most concerned, and go ahead and build that second high school. Again, that would be a high school built in land that we've earmarked on the Daimler property on that side of the district where we're experiencing the most growth. So those 3 projects, and by the way, that converting that 9th grade academy to a middle school would save our taxpayers $50 million of not building a new middle school, and it would use our space in the smartest, most conservative way. That bond referendum that is coming down the road, potentially for those 3 schools, but 2 new buildings, is about $190 million. So that is the biggest bond referendum we will have ever asked our Clover School District family to support. And so we're very conscious about that. We want to make sure that if we are providing the right kinds of schools, that we do it in a way that supports the residents who have been here supporting us all along and passing bond referendums. And again, we are very appreciative of that, and we do not take that lightly. And so that is, if you'll hit the next slide, that is why we began to look at, well, what are those costs going to be, and how can we be fiscally responsible and raise the funds to do that? So if you could see these numbers, and they're very blurry the way that the font looks on this screen here tonight, but it's the estimated cost of the elementary school, around $39 million by the time we build it in 24-25, and the high school at $150 million. And for those of you who are trying to figure out the math behind the impact fee, the reason why the impact fee is high, in some opinion, is because we have to build these 2 schools and the cost of these 2 schools. So the impact fee comes from what are the projects that you have to build and how much do they cost. and it's a product of that. And I have a better person to explain all that to you when Mr. Bice gets up, and he'll talk you through how you get to a per pupil cost with regard to the impact fee. If we did not need these two schools, as well as some additional buses and some land for future growth that we're going to need, the impact fee would be less. So that's part of what is generating the amount of the fee. If you'll hit the next slide. So there are two ways that we can generate funds, and everyone has talked about those two ways tonight. The first way, and the most traditional way, is through a bond referendum, and we will have to do a bond referendum at some point. The other way is to have an impact fee, and of course that is a one-time fee on new construction so that growth can help pay for some of the growth that is a result of new construction coming to the district. And so if you'll hit the next slide. Now for the mechanics of where the fee comes from, and I'm going to turn this part of the presentation over to Mr. Carson Bice to talk about those calculations. Thank you for being here. He's flown in from Washington, so we appreciate his presence.
Thank you, Dr. Quinn. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of council. It's my pleasure to stand before you again. I'm here to just sort of walk you through at a high level how the fee was calculated. Next slide, please. A little bit about us. We've been in business now for over 40 years, and we're the national leader in calculating impact fees as well as preparing fiscal and economic impact analyses. And as you can see here, we've done quite a bit of impact fee work in the state of South Carolina, and we're currently preparing school impact fees in Lancaster County and Beaufort County, and doing fees in Lexington and Lancaster as well for the non-schools. Next slide, please. I'm going to touch on some of the things that Dr. Quinn mentioned. The fees themselves have several cost components. The first one, and the one that really drives the fee amount, is the actual bricks and mortar construction cost for elementary and high school space. It's important to note that because of the plans that Dr. Quinn mentioned about converting the current, I think it was the 9th grade academy, into middle school space, we are not assuming a bricks and mortar construction component for the middle school fee, because that's being taken care of in another way. So when you see the bottom line number, the middle school fee is quite low because it only includes the administrative space component as well as the bus component. We also have a component for land, okay, because the school board or school district will have to purchase land in the future for additional school sites. The costs include furnitures and fixtures, also administrative space, and as Dr. Quinn mentioned, the activity buses that aren't purchased by the state of South Carolina. I'd also just like to add sort of an ad lib here relative to why the fees in South Carolina are so high. First of all, there aren't many states that actually allow school impact fees. South Carolina is one of those. Probably the most popular state for school impact fees is Florida, and the school fees are much lower there. And the reason that is because they receive quite a bit of funding from the state. In South Carolina, the districts are almost entirely responsible for building their physical plant, and so as a result, the school fees are quite high relative to the national averages. The costs are based on several things. One, the planned school construction costs, as Dr. Quinn mentioned, were provided by Cummings. Historical land purchase prices, so we've looked at what did the school district actually spend on an average cost per acre for land, and have assumed that will remain true going forward, which is probably a conservative assumption. And then the actual cost of school bus purchases. It's also important to note that the school impact fee calculation also includes 2 credits. One of the tenets of impact fee calculations are that we need to ensure that new development doesn't pay twice. Once through the impact fee that's paid, and then again through a future stream of revenue, such as property tax or sales tax or income tax or whatever the source may be in the particular jurisdiction, that goes to pay for the same thing that the impact fee paid for. So you'll see within the report there's a credit for future and existing debt service. So we know what the future debt issuances, the existing debt issuances are and what those principal payments are in the future. And then we based a 20-year bond on the planned school construction costs in order to get a proxy for the future debt service credit as well. Next slide, please. Does this one have animation? Yes. Okay. Okay. Okay, bear with us on this. We tried to animate this to make it clearer to understand. But before we get to the animation, the way this is going to work is we're going to work our way from top to bottom. The top part of this table is what we call the pupil generation or student generation rates by type of house, and they're broken down by type of grade. And then as we work our way down the table, we're going to see the level of service standards and cost assumptions for the different components within the fee. So let's give this a try and advance the slide for the first animation. There we go. I think it's going to work. So the student generation rates, this is based on actual data. I heard someone from the Home Builders Association say that this was wrong. It is not wrong. This is not regional data. This is not national data. This is Clover School District specific data by address for students living in the school district. So what this is what we call it a student generation rate or a pupil generation rate, and we vary it by type of house, because you can see here, in most communities, with some exceptions, single-family units tend to generate many more school children than multifamily units, okay? And that's the case here within the Clover School District. We also break it out by grade level. So we've got the elementary student generation rate, the middle school student generation rate, and the high school student generation rates. As you can see, as I mentioned earlier, the highest is single-family units. So the way to think about this is for every 100 single-family housing units, you generate 43 school students. For every 100 multifamily units, you generate almost 21 school students. For every mobile home, you generate almost 28 school students. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is what we call our current level of service standards. So this sort of boils the report down to its essence. So we look at level of service in terms of how much building square footage we have per student, then what does it cost per square foot to construct that space, how many acres of land do we have per student, and what is our average cost per acre for land, what's our administrative square footage per student, and what does it cost to build administrative square footage in the future. And then what are the level of service standards for buses, and what are those costs? Next slide, please. So we get what we call our gross capital cost per student. So as we see here, as we work our way across, the gross capital cost per student is over $53,000 for an elementary student. It's only $1,500 for a middle school student because we don't have the cost of construction and land component. And then it's $69,000 per student for the high school level. But if you recall, I mentioned that we have credits for future debt and existing debt principal. And so those credits are given to get our net local capital cost per student, which range from a low of $1,500 for middle school to a high of $55,000 for the elementary school, or excuse me, the middle school, and then, or excuse me, high school, and then $39,000 for the elementary school. Next slide. And so that allows us to come up with the actual school impact fee. So as you can see here for the single family unit, the maximum allowable fee would be slightly over $15,000. The multifamily fee is $7,430, and I think it's $9,842, if I'm seeing this correctly, for the mobile home. It's also important to note that deed-restricted communities of folks over 55 that aren't generating school children are exempted from the school impact fee. Next slide. Finally, and this is not to be taken lightly, this comes up in every fee study that we do across the country, and that is what are the impacts of school or impact fees in general on the provision of affordable housing. And it's interesting that South Carolina is the only state that actually requires that the impact fee study address affordable housing. The problem with the act is it doesn't tell you how. It doesn't give you any remedies. And so if you've got 20 consultants into a room, you could come up with 20 different methodologies to address affordable housing. And the home builders don't agree with the way we have done it here. But what we do is we look at certain assumptions about income, what the value of the house is. We look at what the average property tax bills are, utility bills, all those costs of home ownerships, and estimate what a loan would be, and then what percentage of the impact fee does that take up of your housing-related expenses. And you can see here, without the $15,000 impact fee, The cost burden is 29%. When you add the cost or the $15,000 impact fee into the mortgage, the needle moves about a percentage point. And so the point here is that $15,000 does sound like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But when you amortize that $15,000 over the cost of a 30-year mortgage, it's a relatively low figure, around $70 a month. And so this is the housing affordability analysis. And with that, I'm happy, or do you have additional slides? Okay, thank you.
Okay, if you'll advance to the next slide. And the last part of this that we wanted to share with you, and gosh, things have moved on this version, so I may have to use mine so I don't misspeak, was what does the impact mean to you? What does it mean for the residents of Clover School District? And so if that table were aligned better, and it's moved since it's on a new sheet, it would say that an estimated housing units, if we only factored in 3,300 of the housing units that are already approved and planned. Now remember, if you go back a few slides, it was 3,900 and some odd housing units that are already coming our way. If 3,300 of those had an impact fee of $15,000, we would collect about $49 million, just under $50 million. And that's more than what our elementary school would cost to build. Our elementary school was projected to be $39 million. It's at the very least a really, really good down payment on a bond referendum so that we don't have to ask our taxpayers who have been here, who have been paying, our residents who are still paying on the bonds that we have existing to pay on. It is a significant amount of money, and that's just on 3,300 of those. If you'll go to the next slide. That represents about a 30 mil savings or not money that we're not asking our taxpayers to spend. So right now in Clover School District, our outstanding bonds are $94 million. With a 2021 potential bond referendum for the two schools that we're talking about for $190 million, the debt that we will owe will be $284 million. Our current debt millage requires 22 mills to raise the money to pay our principal payment every year. With an impact fee, or with the new 190 million added, it'll be a 65 mills. So if an impact fee could cause a reduction of 30 mills, that means that we only need 35 from our taxpayers to pay our debt. And that's a huge, huge help for our community. It's a 47% tax bill decrease savings. If you want to see how that looks for a business or for a resident, again, if you'll go to the next slide. You can see, I would go all the way down to personal residents. So at 22 mills, which is what our current tax debt service mills are, a personal residence pays $176 per year on the cost of those bonds. When it goes up to 65 mills, because we've had to do a bond referendum for the 190 million, it will be 520. If we are able to offset that in any way up to 30 mills, then 35 mills would be what we would need, and that means the taxes on a personal residence would be $280. So it does help our community, and again, that's on a hypothetical home of a $200,000 home. You can see what it would be for a vehicle, and then you can see we actually chose several of the businesses that are in our community to give you examples there and the change in their tax bill. So that is the crux of why we are proposing this impact fee. It's also the crux of why we haven't tried to move the number. The study that we have done that Tischler Weiss did actually produce the maximum allowable. We understand that it can't be higher than that. It could be lower than that, and we also understand that. But we wanted to make sure that we are giving our taxpayers the most help in this process as possible, and so that is why we have not proposed to lower that impact fee by any amount. If you'll hit the next slide, and I believe this is our last slide of this evening, We believe that we have conducted a strong study. We've provided all the accurate data to our consultant, who has used a legally defensible mathematical formula for calculating growth. We believe that the current impact fee amount saves our taxpayers the most and gives us the most support, and that is why we are proposing the impact fee. Again, we understand that this council has the very difficult task of taking that into consideration with everything else you are considering for growth management in our school district, and we understand that and accept that. We just appreciate the opportunity to bring you this study and to make our case. And that is the end of the formal presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if this is the time, or if you'd like to have people speak in favor.
This is the time for people to speak in favor.
Can I ask a question?
I'm afraid not. You can ask it afterwards or during the next few weeks directly to the school district. But this is purely for people to give council information. Would anyone else like to speak in favor? And y'all can kind of just line up and just speak one at a time. That'd be great.
My name's Jeff Ledford. I live at 2095 Cutter Point Drive in Lake Wiley. And before I read my statement, I want to say that I am a huge Sheila Quinn fan. I think she's done a phenomenal job, does a phenomenal job in her position. And my three sons have all gone through school now. They're out of school. And they did not go through school here in this area. We moved around a lot. But I sure wish that my kids would have gone through Clover District. I want to thank you all for allowing me to address you tonight. I am the chairman of the Lake Wiley Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here tonight representing the Lake Wiley Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors to express our stance concerning the proposed impact fee for the Clover School District. First off, I'd like to summarize some givens. Over the past 3 years, the Clover School District has experienced growth of average of 4% per year. There's no reason to believe that this will not continue. We've schools ranging from 75% capacity to 95% capacity, with our high school already at 2022 and 2023 projected enrollment. These numbers were prior to any changes that were created by the pandemic. According to the information from the Clover School District, as of May 2020, there were 3,940 approved homes or units still to be built in the Clover School District attendance area. The majority of these will impact the school enrollment numbers. The purpose of the Chamber of Commerce is to help businesses grow by looking into their interest and their concerns. Any increase in taxes that would be approved by voters would be a cost to any business in our community, whether they have a direct impact on our school enrollment or not. If you look back at the history of the growth in our county, it's the local builders that have been here for years, providing not only quality housing for our growing communities, but supporting the local economies through their purchasing from local suppliers and providing jobs to our local businesses. They were here before any regional or national tract home builder showed up in our area, and with our support, hopefully they'll be here when the big builders move on. Due to the pandemic that has affected everyone in some way since March of 2020, our local builders are facing unprecedented shortages and price increases on most all basic supplies. One of the attractive features of our county is the strength and success of our school system. To build a strong community, you must have a strong school system. And last, any impact fee that is adopted for our school system will specifically hit our local builders in a negative way. Therefore, the Lake Wiley Chamber of Commerce does officially support an impact fee that will support future building of schools in the Clover School District in order to support expected growth in our area. Because we have an obligation to our local businesses and their interests, we do not support the current amounts that were proposed through a consultant study. We believe an impact fee of $4,000 to $6,000 per unit would be reasonable for our local builders and still help reduce any tax increases that the public, including businesses, would be asked to pay in support of school growth. And we also would support a decision of the impact fee not being enacted until, at the earliest, the building moratorium has ended at the end of March 2021. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Heather Dowdge, 1985 Jim McCarter Road here in Clover. As a parent of 2 Clover School District students, as an active member on the School Improvement Council at both Lauren and Clover Middle School, and as a Clover School District employee, I understand the importance of tonight's meeting. Time is important, and it truly is time that we discuss and address the need for an impact fee for the new home construction in our district. Time, growth, intention, and support. I realize your time is valuable, and I realize time is precious. Time for our children is also valuable. We only have 12 years to ensure that they have the best education we can provide. Ensuring they have modern, well-designed, and appropriate class sizes is fundamental to the basics of instruction. When families choose to move to the Clover School District, our quality educational design is typically a key element in their decision-making. Parents want the very best for their children. We all do. And the question as to who shares the burden of providing the best is, in part, what we're here tonight to advocate. While the Clover School District has done, and will continue to do, an exemplary job of providing the highest of quality educational services, growth provides opportunity. Growth of our Clover School District student population, this has provided us with additional means to fund the necessary structural construction. Simply put, the impact fee allows for new Clover School District families to enjoy Clover School District benefits while promoting growth with intention. Intention, recognizing their need to financially support the next level of structural growth. If a community is desirable enough to relocate here, then it should also be worthy of the financial support that is necessary to continue the educational growth. As a parent, and as any parent, I want my children to succeed and to have success in all their endeavors. And as a member of the Clover School District, both by parental roles, employment roles, and residential roles, I want to see Clover School District and Clover succeed. Please approve the request for an impact fee assessment, be it the $15,000 that has been requested or one of your choosing, but please approve the request for an impact fee assessment because it is a timely grown need for our community, for our schools, and for our children. Thank you.
Good evening, York County Council members and other members of our local community. My name is Marissa Cornish, and first I would really like to thank you for this opportunity. I have not been to a council meeting before, so this has been quite eye-opening, and I do appreciate it as a community member. My husband Chris and I have lived in Lake Wylie now for nearly 16 years. I'm here tonight wearing the hat of a parent, and this hat is definitely one, like many, that we won't ever take off. As a mother of 3 school-aged children, my oldest just started Oak Ridge Middle yesterday, and my 2 girls are 4th and 1st grade at Crowders Creek Elementary. I have to say that we have a very vested interest in the state of our schools, and we are very concerned about the growth going forward, as many people have discussed already. So just a little bit of context, Chris and I moved out here after a temporary work relocation to Charlotte. I found Lake Wylie to be quiet, a little lonesome at times for a couple without kids, very few friends and so on. The Burger King sat alone on Charlotte Highway, and the driving range just beyond that was pretty much deserted. As many can attest, how much life changes when your pet ownership changes to that of motherhood. Chris and I made a promise to each other that when Will started kindergarten at Crowders Creek several years ago, we'd give it a chance, see if we were satisfied, and decide if the Clover School District was really the best fit for us. He's kind of been our guinea pig throughout all of this. From day one, Chris and I have been committed to prioritizing their education. In order to do so, I have been consistently involved and present at Crowders Creek Elementary, both as PTO member, School Improvement Council member, class chaperone, room parent, and so on. And now I find myself wanting to be involved at Oak Ridge Middle as well. But I also find myself tossing and turning with questions and concerns. This year of uncertainty and unforeseen circumstances have not helped my quest for answers. Julia, my youngest, now only in first grade, thankfully went happily yesterday. And with a capacity at Crowder's Creek that's nearing 90% already, I have major concerns of what her school environment will look like in the next 1 to really 3 years before she even nears the point of finishing there. Likewise, my eldest Will is in a facility that too is almost at capacity at Oak Ridge. With the current growth projections for our region and CSD enrollment, I'm overwhelmed by decisions that we're facing. In order for us as a district to achieve the CSD vision of quote-unquote meaningful experiences, continuous improvement through collaboration, individualized and personally relevant education, and a safe, nurturing education environment, I think these elements desperately need to include space and significant advanced planning. I applaud the Clover School District for all of the work that has led up to tonight. As a resident and taxpayer for so many years, we have supported the growth of this region, as referenced by Dr. Quinn's slide earlier related to the bond referendum that we're still paying for. We've lived through a school split that made Crowder's Creek smaller and maybe even feel more manageable, and then a rezoning that forced Crowder's Creek Elementary population to balloon again. Like everyone else, we are witnessing excessive expansions due to the massive influx of residents to South Carolina, a no-brainer for so many whom are experiencing severe challenges caused by a global pandemic, broken educational systems elsewhere, unaffordable housing, and higher taxes. In turn, new challenges arise for us: more traffic, more accidents, more people, more students, more needs for services and amenities, and more space. Potentially expanding classrooms to mobile units or having 27 or more students in a single classroom are not ideals for anyone who holds education to be a top priority for their children. But Chris and I really want to stay here, and we really want to see them through this journey because we have had firsthand experience now that attests that the Clover School District has far exceeded any expectations that we ever had when Will entered kindergarten. If this area is so desirable for so many and the new construction rate continues to explode, i.e. I can see it just coming down Charlotte Highway every day on my way home, it is reasonable and proactive that some of this funding be passed along to our newest Clover Lake Wiley residents. We really want to stay for a long time, but sharing the expenses associated with our area's extreme growth is a sensible next step. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to share my perspective, and I tip my hat to all of you and hope that you'll approve the implementation of impact fees on new construction. Thank you. Be well.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Dubisky from 312 Brigadier Drive in Clover. Allison, good to see you. Thanks everybody for spending time to listen to us. The matter tonight, the impact fee, I think we need to invest in our school district, both as a function of our ability to deliver the best education possible, as well as the growth in the population that we've all enjoyed. If we take a look at the fact that Clover is well known for the great education it offers in the county and its lower taxes, we have become a destination school district. It was said by many people on both sides of the fence here tonight that, as a parent, my family relocated here 11 years ago. The reason we chose Clover, and we were blessed enough to be able to choose anywhere, was the school district. And also we were told, make sure we come across the line for the taxes. Our daughter entered Griggs Elementary School in the 2nd grade, and now has just begun her freshman year at Anderson University here in Anderson, South Carolina. It's her grades, growth, and the opportunities from this top-tier education system that stem from the phenomenal job that the school district has done, both fiscally, around fiscal responsibility, long-term planning, and keeping pace with the students' needs to be successful after graduation, wherever that may lead them. Second, as a supporter for the recent bond campaign in 2014, the bond was here to maintain and enhance the ability of the district to serve its current student body, with that direct assessment going to those of us, the taxpayers. Since that time, we've experienced a significant growth that creates right now an imbalance in long-term property taxes, as well as our businesses, that need to be held in check as they were back during the referendum. Lastly, and just to point out that as a business professional, I currently work with some of the largest employers globally in hiring their talent. Clover has preparatory programs for technical schools, 2- and 4-year degree institutions, as well as certifications for employment-ready professions from the Applied Technology Center. In order to maintain that level of talent that companies and colleges are now requiring and need, additional investment is necessary to serve those inbound families and the school population. So again, we do need the investment. I support the proposed impact fees as they are again a part of excellent planning on behalf of the district, both for repurposing current assets, planning for the expansion while not eroding the quality and the variety of our programs, and placing a proportionate assessment with new construction that is causing these needs in the first place. With the investment in Clover, we should enjoy the continued growth of its population, the top-tier education, and balanced taxes, all of which are highly attractive for the area. Thank you for your time.
I'm Kathy McCarter, and I reside at 298 Old Carriage Road in Clover. Mr. Chairman, members of the council, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you tonight. I'm a lifelong resident of Clover, a product of the Clover School District, and a retired employee of the Clover School District. So I have a lot invested in my community and in my school, and I certainly support the impact fees. We may not be increasing like Fort Mill. We may not be having 1,000 children like they are, but we are increasing, and I think we heard Dr. Quinn say that we're increasing between 3% and 4%. So for us, that's a significant increase, and especially with our current enrollment being at 8,600 students. Our elementary schools, middle schools are nearing capacity as she showed us in the presentation, and by 2023, our high school can have as many as 2,500 students. That's a lot of students for a high school. So if we're going to add an elementary school, and particularly if we're going to add a high school, we know that's a huge budget. We know that's a huge budget. High schools are very costly and very expensive. You know, and I'll tell you as a resident, growth in a small town is hard. It's really hard, but it's inevitable. It's going to come about when you live in a place like we live in Clover, where we're close to everything you want to be, but we still have that little small town feel. Everybody wants to be there. And I believe that these impact fees are the right step to provide the relief for taxpayers in a bond referendum that is staring us in the face. As of May 20, I think Dr. Quinn said there were 4,000 additional homes or units that had been approved for construction, or close to that number. And I believe she said that if we were able to collect a portion of that, we could have $50 million to help offset the cost to taxpayers. I think we're currently at 22 mills, and to move up to 65 mills, that's huge. That's really huge. So I think if we can have the impact fees and make those collections, that would be quite a savings for our taxpayers. So I'm here to ask the council to think about the individuals and the businesses who for a very, very, very long time have been bearing the burden, and to ask you to impose the impact fees so that growth can begin paying for growth. I thank you for your time.
Hello, I'm Bo Ziegler. I reside at 1398 Saddle Drive. And I want to thank the council for having us here tonight. I really appreciate that. I've got a few things I wanted to discuss as far as the impact fee goes. I am in support 100% of taking great care of our children at our schools and having great schools. It's kind of a misnomer that builders would have any different contemplation, and I'm a home builder. I've also got 5 kids. I wanted them to be well educated, and thankfully they have been. The school needs money, and I believe that a portion of that could certainly come from a school referendum to be able to have this type fee. I do think that the fee is extremely excessive, and I think that that I want to point out that on a typical house, I'll start a house and I will have 70 workers work on a single house. I'm a local builder. I don't build very many houses. I might build 6 houses this year. I might build 10. I guess probably this year I might build 8 or 10. And on those houses, I'll have a company called Bob's Drywall that'll do my drywall here. He's lived in this county for his entire life. I'll have Carter Lumber supply my supplies. I'll have Carolina Brick bring me masonry. I'll have Decorative Lighting, a guy named Ed Young, who has been in Rock Hill his entire life, supply me lights. His employees, all of these companies' employees, live in our county. Like I said, I'll use roughly 70 employees. The impact that it has if we face a reduction in building because we get to the point where price sensitivity doesn't work in our favor is substantial. I've got a twin brother that is a general contractor, a home builder in Mechanicsville, Virginia. What's interesting about that is Mechanicsville, Virginia had a impact fee, except it was called a proffer. They started their proffer in 1989, and they started their proffer with $2,600. Does that number sound familiar? The proffer grew to $5,000, then it grew to $10,000, then it grew to $12,000, then it grew to $16,000. It continued to grow until it literally grew to $35,000. So the proffer in Mechanicsville, Virginia was at $35,000. They built virtually no houses in Mechanicsville for a number of years, and today the proffer is 0. It got to the point where it just absolutely would not function correctly. It hurt them, and they brought it down. Now, that's happened in South Carolina also already with an impact fee that had been pushed up in Mount Pleasant and is now being considered to pull down. So I think that the number that we're looking at is too high. Once again, I fully support that we need to fully fund our schools, but I also, I have suggested other ways to look at that. I know that we use bond referendums. One of the things that I had contemplated and asked a couple of members of council and also asked members of the public is, could we put a fee on every house sold, not just the brand new houses, but every house sold? For instance, I've got a larger house because I have 5 kids, but my kids are going out. I'm down to 2 in the house. I'm getting very close to the point where I want a smaller house. I've paid taxes in York County for 22 years now. So do I take the $15,000 hit to downsize to build a smaller house for my wife and I to basically retire in, while somebody from Chicago moves into my house with 4 kids to be able to adapt to my larger house? What's their impact? What's their impact and what's their fee? Well, we could mitigate that some in saying, let's say that we did an 1/8 of a point, just an 1/8 of a point on every house sold. Well, if you sell a $250,000 house, that's a $312 fee. Maybe you need a 1/4 of a point to make the budget work. Okay, so it's a $525 fee. If you have a $500,000 house, then your fee is $625. If you're doing an 1/8 of a point. If you do a 1/4 of a point, your fee goes to $1,250. I don't think that that we need to take the entire $15,000 from one singular entity. And I do want to thank the Chamber of Commerce. I don't know if you're still here. The Chamber of Commerce, I appreciate the fact that the Chamber of Commerce was willing to step up and say, hey, we're kind of all in this together, and all of us bear the burden. Is it right to put it on one activity? You might potentially say, you know what, we have a lot of attorneys in town, and should we put a substantial fee on attorney services? You know, there are lots of places that have a tax on services. Should we tax attorney services, to a drastic number and take it just from attorney fees? Well, that would be wrong. It's wrong. Should we take it from a grocery store, specifically grocery stores? Maybe only one column in a grocery store, maybe just the cereal column. Was that wrong? I think it's wrong. So I'm asking, is there a way that we can find to distribute this number a little bit, still move forward with a potential fee, but the $15,000 number is wrong? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Billy Hagner from, I live at 1901 Voyager Road. As far as the impact fees, I see three things that it's going to be doing. One is it should slow growth some. I kind of thought that was part of the reason for having it. And undoubtedly all the builders that are here today seem to think that may be the case too. So everybody knows we definitely have a growth problem in the Lake Wiley area. And this may help for a while to slow it down just a little bit. The second thing it does, it puts more financial burden on the people that's causing the growth. Make them pay a bigger share of it because they're the reason that we're having to build the new schools. If we didn't build the new houses, we wouldn't need any new schools at all. We wouldn't even need this bond issue. The other thing this impact fee does, it's going to reduce the amount of money that I have to pay on my taxes. I've been in the county for over 40 years, in the Clover school district for probably 13, 14 years. Don't have any children in school for quite a while. And my taxes are going to go up over $1,100 a year without the impact fees. With the impact fees, they're going to go up about $350. So that's a pretty big number. And I haven't done anything to, cause a reason for having to build new schools. So I think that's something, we need to consider. My one concern is, though, that we're going to put these impact fees on and it's going to raise the price of all these new houses. In a few years, I don't know what the number is, maybe 3, 4, 5 years, that's going to bring up the pricing of all the existing houses. So my house in 5 more years is probably going to be worth $15,000 more than what it is right now. Okay, when the tax assessor comes around, he's going to come over there and he's going to say, your house is worth this much plus $15,000 because they go around and look at all the comparables. All right, if they don't reduce our millage, then I'm going to end up paying 5 years down the road, I'm going to end up paying the same tax that I would have done without the impact fee. So there needs to be some kind of assurance that when we do have a reassessment, that our millage is going to be lowered to correct for this $15,000 or whatever the number is. So I thought that was kind of I haven't heard anybody say that, but there's no doubt in my mind the existing house prices are going to go up due to this impact fee, but it's going to take a little while to do it. Let's see, the other thing I did have, some concerns that several people had, and I think Tom Smith talked about this at the county council meeting last, Monday before last, about a specific case, somebody that lived in the county for all their life, don't have any children within the school district, and they want to build a new house. Why should they have to pay $15,000 just to build them a new house extra? And I agree with that. That looks like that's a problem. Here again, if he sells his house 5 years down the road, my theory is his value of that old house is going to be $15,000 more. So I think what you need to do, you need to give some type of a waiver to people that's been in the county for so long a time and are building a new house, maybe 1 or 2 years, where if they're doing that, what we've heard about 4 or 5 people say that today, that they shouldn't have to pay this, the complete impact fee or maybe a reduced amount of it. I know it can get kind of sticky when you start making rules and things like that, but it doesn't seem fair to me to make a person that's been here all their life, just because they want to build a new house, they have to pay an additional $15,000. And when they're gonna turn around and sell their house right away? If they wait 5 years, I think they'll get their money back. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council. My name is Judy Miller and I live at 700 North Main Street, Clover. It's an honor to have the opportunity to share my thoughts with you tonight in favor of the impact fee. And I thank you for allowing our school district to share their plans with you. I am a lifetime member or resident of Clover and a graduate of Clover High School. I have seen extreme growth in the last few years, and I understand why anybody living anywhere else in the United States would want to move to York County, and in particular to Clover. We have always had a small town charm while having the easy ride to Charlotte for all of the arts, dining, and career opportunities that only a big city can offer. We also have Winthrop University close enough to enjoy the many events they offer. Another major reason folks choose Clover is our superior school district. While our school board of trustees has always managed to stay ahead of the growth curve by buying land and building schools before we were in the crisis situation, I feel the district cannot continue to put this tax expense on the backs of all residents and businesses. I welcome newcomers, and I know that this diversity adds to the life experience we all need and want. But those moving into the district should pay for the impact that this extreme growth has had on our school district. The impact fee would place this cost squarely on the new residents, allowing growth to pay for growth. The new homeowners would hardly notice the impact fee in a long-term mortgage while providing money for capital improvements without a drastic increase in property taxes for all school district citizens. Thank you, County Council members, for listening to me speak on behalf of all residents, businesses, and the children of our school district. Good night.
Good evening, Heather Katz, 133 Autumn Falls Drive. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the impact fees and for moving forward with them. Thank you for listening to all of us this evening and for your time. Obviously, it's a very, very important subject that affects all of us. I have lived in Lake Wylie for 15 years, of course, seen tremendous growth, and I also have 3 children, 2 of them at one at Crowder's, 2 at Oak Ridge Middle School, and also originally when we moved to the district, I had 1 at Griggs Road. So I've kind of been all over the district. I'm also heavily involved with my children's education in PTO and SIC committees, Chamber of Commerce member. Love Lake Wylie, like everyone said, just a really amazing place to live, amazing place to raise your children, and really raise your children in the public education system, not having to find private schooling or anything else because of the excellence provided. And just truly hats off to our Dr. Quinn and all she has brought to our district. When we first moved here, Griggs Road was such a great little school, and you could come and go, and it was wonderful. Then we moved over to the Crowder's Creek district, and oh my goodness, my children went from small classrooms to 1,200 kids. And it was like an airport to me because it was so big compared to the feel of Griggs Road. But then, because of planning and all that we have discussed this evening, Oak Ridge Elementary School opened. So half of our population went to Oak Ridge Elementary School. So again, that feel was, oh, okay, great, small school again, and we have all this wonderful. And then it wasn't but 2 years that we were back up over 1,000 students. And like has previously been mentioned, just truly exponential growth. I mean, we can do all the numbers and run all the numbers, but you can't run the numbers for what we are experiencing. It's just huge. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful. But there needs to be the financial burdens that go with that we assume. And certainly that growth has come with the building of new homes. We all know that Clover and Lake Wylie is a wonderful place to raise a family and to publicly educate your children. Growth is good. Nobody's saying it's not good. In fact, Dr. Quinn said we're not talking about one against the other. It's just the financial responsibility should fall on, and it's been said here before, growth paying for growth. I truly appreciate your time in preserving the level of education that's provided for our children, for everybody in our community, and listening to all of our comments. And I would just please approve an impact fee so that the level of education and the feel of our community remains the same moving forward. Not just, this next few years, but for years and years to come. Many people spoke tonight, born and raised here in Clover. It's always been excellent. Let's make sure we do our part to keep it that way. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Katherine Myrick. I live at 179 Autumn Falls Drive in the Lake Wylie area. And I'm coming before you today as a former teacher. Prior to attending dental school and becoming a dentist in the town of Clover, I taught for 7 years in the science department at Northwestern High School in Rock Hill in the mid to late 1990s. I'm sorry, it's been a long day. This was a time when our local schools were financed by a state property tax. Rock Hill was not the richest district, but my first year teaching, we had an adequate budget for what we needed to properly instruct most of our students. Then a change in how the district was going to be taxed was looming. Recently, right before I started teaching, the Catawba Nation's property was reclassified and they no longer had to pay the school district. Instead, their students paid a tuition to the school. And that is something I believe is still in some sort of a litigation today or contested. That time also there was talk about an educational lottery to replace the property tax that was funding the local schools, as well as a generalized restructuring of state allocation of money to the local districts. Thinking ahead, Rock Hill District moved a lot of money into reserves, cutting our instructional and operating budgets. I remember being in the teacher's lounge at the end of September and teachers crying because they had already used up all of their paper, funds, and copies for the entire year. Now, I know we don't use a lot of paper anymore because of the technology has changed. Supplies for science experiments, they are still expensive, and they get used on a yearly basis. There are other expenses I'm sure they are occurring. During this time, I was also working on an ed leadership degree, which I got, and I was writing a paper in my educational finance class, and I chose impact fees because guess what? Fort Mill was talking about adopting them, and nobody knew a whole lot about them. But what I learned was that the impact fees went to fund construction cost only, not the instruction or operating fees. If you have that money set aside for construction, you can free up other funds for instruction, and you could avoid those problems that I mentioned with teachers crying in the teacher's lounge just because they've already used up all the funds that they had been allocated for their students for the whole year. I came away from that paper questioning why Rock Hill, Clover, and York were not also talking about adopting them. In 1999, when my brother graduated from Clover High School, his graduating class was 246. This past year, the graduating class was 580. That is more than double, and you can indicate from that that the school population has also more than doubled. During that time, Larn Elementary, Oak Ridge Elementary, and middle schools, as well as the Clover Middle School and the Applied Technology Center, were built. Had Clover adopted the impact fees at the same time as Fort Mill, Clover could have used those funds to build those schools instead of school bonds. And that brings me to today. I live in the area of Lake Wylie, and I drive to and from the town of Clover every single day. During my downtime, I spend a lot of time on Facebook. member of many community groups of Lake Wiley and Clover. People are always talking about moving to the area. Nobody, and they were always talking about they're moving here because of the schools. Nobody ever mentions they're moving here because it's a short commute to work. I know y'all are aware of the growth in the district. It's been mentioned before, but at the number that I got, which seems to be a little bit lower, about 4,192 new places are already on the books to be built and approved at 0.43 school-age children per house. It's equivalent to about 1,800 or a new school. You've already heard the schools that are already needed in the district, not to mention the ones that will be coming with the growth. In the late 1980s, our local funds for the school have come from the Catawba nuclear plant, which went live while I was in high school in Clover. It provided this year 58% of the local operating budget. But each year that nuclear plant depreciates and they will be paying less and less of the local funds. You lose the local funds, you have to still build buildings for the new growth. Where's that going to come from if you don't already have a fund set aside that's coming from the instructional budget? It's coming from your operating expenses. What you will end up with are stressed teachers and overcrowded schools. Please adopt impact fees for the district. They only pay for the brick and mortar. They don't pay for what goes on inside. But if we already have the funds set aside for the brick and mortar, we have more funds set aside for what goes on inside. We are all proud of our schools and we want to keep it that way. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Kieron Meeks. I live at 800 Settlement Drive in the Lake Wiley area, and I'm here to speak in favor of the impact fees. You all have heard a lot of data this evening. I'm not going to provide you with any numbers or any stories around it. I would just encourage you all to keep the children first. Keep the students first when you make your decisions tonight and going forward, or the dialogue with the school district. Just keep the students first in your dialogue and in your decisions that you make around the impact fees. Thank you.
Quinn Smith, 6121 Charlotte Highway, York, South Carolina. First off, I want to thank council for being here tonight and listening to our concerns. I work for May Green Properties. We're a family-owned, low-impact developer. We've been developing subdivisions in York County since 1988. So we're from this community. We've invested here, and I grew up here. Tonight, your true local developers and builders, we're calling out for help. We come here to voice our concerns. This fee isn't a result of growth that we've brought to the area. Non-local, national-type developments have come in overpopulated areas of the Clover School District, which has led us here to the discussion tonight. The local developers and builders understand that we do attribute to growth, but we are a very small footprint compared to these non-local developers who come in and have driven the need for the impact fee tonight. We love York County, and we don't want to leave here, but we've been driven out, and it's going to be tough for us to survive if this impact fee does come in at $15,000. I want to give you a real quick example of how a $15,000 impact fee could affect this community immediately. I met with a local builder from Fort Mill last week. He doesn't build in Fort Mill because it's too costly. He currently commutes an hour over the state line to Denver, North Carolina to build homes. He's very interested in a new custom home development out in Clover, South Carolina that we just started developing. At an average price point of $550,000, that would generate almost $20 million to the local economy in just 3 years. So that's $20 million, a local builder, local subs, local vendors, everything would be local. When I let him know about what was going on tonight with the pending $15,000 impact fee, he let me know that if there was a $15,000 impact fee, that there would just be absolutely no way for him to build in Clover. So that $20 million just got up, walked out the door, and went back to Denver, North Carolina. That's real, that's immediate. Those numbers don't come from an out-of-state consultation. Those numbers don't come from, a projected permit site list. Those numbers are real, they're immediate, and it's what the local builders, everyone here in this room, is going to have to do in the next couple of years if this doesn't change. Again, we're crying, we need help. Last, I want to say, I'm up here because we do agree. We support an impact fee, but it needs to be reasonable. Like Dr. Quinn said earlier, she loves to see beautiful houses. And I have no doubt that if we pass a $15,000 impact fee, that we're going to see beautiful schools. But I will promise you that you will see less and less beautiful homes if it comes in at $15,000. So again, the local builders that got up here and spoke against it, they're not necessarily against an impact fee, they just need it at a lower rate. And that's for you guys to decide, but again, you know, we're at a tipping point. We've spoken in front of you many times, and it's getting tough for us. So I appreciate your time, I appreciate all you do, and I hope that you consider that, and I hope that you guys make the right decision. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, thank you for your time. I thank you for your dedication to this county and what you do for it. My name is Bill Jenkins. I live at 720 Rhema Church Road. I'm neighbors with Mr. Brown and Mr. Norman and these people that spoke opposed to the fee, but I'm here to speak in favor of the fee. As I said, I live in the Bethany, San Diego community. If you don't know where San Diego is, it's not in California, okay? I'm a almost lifetime resident of the Clover School District. I graduated there, my wife did, my two daughters did. But I have no family members in the school system at this time. But still I'm here supporting the impact fee. I'm here to speak to you and urge you to take the necessary action to permit the collection of impact fees to assist in the construction of appropriate facilities for the students of the school district. We've already heard how much the district population is increasing with at least 300 a year. So more students means more buildings means more funds to pay for those buildings. I think we can all agree upon that. Apparently where we disagree tonight is how do we pay for this? But I believe we all, A-L-L, all of us, residents of Clover School District have a part and have a responsibility in providing for these resources. As I said, I don't have any children in the school system, but I believe in education. I'm happy to pay my part of my tax bill for the school construction costs. Wish I could pay it for operations, but Act 388 took care of that part of it, didn't it? But nevertheless, the new homeowners that come into this district are having an impact on the district, but they also realize an immediate benefit. They have the benefit of living in a school district with excellent schools. They may not have children at that time, but their property is going to increase. Why? One of the reasons is because of the school district in which that property exists. Existing property owners and all property owners have been supporting the acquisition of facilities for several years. Not just, again, as I mentioned, 380, not just on building facilities, but on the instruction side, as Dr. Myrick mentioned. For years and years and years, the people of this district have been supporting that in the businesses up until Act 388. So they've paid for a lot of the resources, instruction and construction that the new arrivals are coming in and being recipient of, if that makes sense to you. So my point to that is that we can all benefit with the impact fees. You've heard the examples of it reducing the millage, the proposed 65, and I realize that's an estimate at this time, by 30 mills. Obviously, those 30 mills won't pay back the entire $15,000, but the difference in 30 mills over, let's say, the 20 years will help to offset some of that cost of the impact fees. I conclude by saying this, that I think this is a moral issue as well as a financial issue, that I think the new homeowners that will be receiving the benefit of lower taxes will feel good about doing the right thing by paying their impact fees. Thank you, and again, thank you for your services.
Hello, members of council. So I'm going to move this because I'm tiny. My name is Jessica Cody, and I am a Bethany resident also in the Clover School District. So I live at 1694 South Highway 161. It's actually a York address. If you are not familiar with Bethany, we are the farthest end of the district away from Lake Wiley, so we verge on York and Blacksburg. I have raised my children there. I am a Clover graduate also, so I have been in Bethany most of my life. I actually live in my grandmother's old house, and my sister lives in my parents' old house. My parents bought right down the street. We stay out there. So we love that area. I feel like I have a unique perspective because I'm also a real estate agent. So sometimes this impact fees are not a popular opinion among real estate agents. But part of the reason I know that they are important is because I see the growth in the school district, especially coming our way. So I'm not one of those people that's impacted by the Lake Wiley traffic as often, by the growth in Clover. But we see 2 more developments now being developed out towards my area, which is brand new to us, which is brand new to me in 33 years of being in the Bethany area. So we can definitely spot that growth coming. It's going to impact our schools out there as well on that side of the district. So my boy is being raised in a elementary school with 20 children versus 27 to 30 children. It makes a big difference. And I would like to keep the schools balanced and equity throughout the district. So in order to do that, I feel like growth should pay for growth. You've heard the numbers 1,000 times. The numbers that jump out at me are the reduction of possibly 30 mills, which is 47% tax decrease, as opposed to the 65 mills. I'm a huge supporter of local businesses. I know that the businesses are going to take the brunt of that. If we have a 65 mil tax increase there. So for me, that's really important, and especially with the business that I do. Yes, $15,000 on a home is something I will have to talk to my clients about for new builds. However, increased taxes and increased class sizes in a school district that they are moving there to go to on purpose is also something that I'm going to have to talk to my clients about in the future. Which we all know bond referendums pass in Clover. We're going to have a bond referendum, hopefully, in the near future. We do have things that we need. I love this district so much that, my husband and I had to move away for a short period of time, and as soon as we could get back, we did. We brought our children here to raise them, so much so that I'm running for school board in that area because that is my passion. I feel like I'm a good representation of people in my district. I'm looked to for answers and for information. I sit on many boards in Clover, and one of them raises money for teachers like the dentist talked about, which is awesome, and that's absolutely true. We give grants to Clover teachers because their funds are not available for everything that they need. This is something that in the future offsets costs for brick and mortar builds versus instructional money. So all of that is really, really important also to think about. We appreciate your time, and thank you for letting me talk, and have a good night. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tim Smith, and I reside at 807 Gentleman's Court in Fort Mill, South Carolina. I currently work in the local residential building industry, which is not associated with any mass grade or production builders. And thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak to you on the proposed impact fee for the Clover area. Being a former third grade teacher, I have firsthand knowledge of the importance of educational funding and how the lack of it can have a tremendous impact on the quality of education students receive. Having said this, like I said, I currently make a living in the local residential building industry, the one in which the Clover School District Board is targeting for a huge impact fee, and if passed, will inevitably force me and many other local builders and developers to either leave this profession or work in neighboring counties. We all recognize that our area is growing by leaps and bounds and has for many years now. We need funds available for our schools in order to support this growth. But why is the local residential building industry having to carry the entire impact of this growth, when in fact all the other businesses in this area will benefit from it? Why are we paying for all the growth and none of the other businesses are being asked to contribute? I do support an impact fee, but only one that is reasonable and would still allow me and many others to make a living and contribute to support the area that we call home. Let me finish up by saying that I try to instill in all my young students values I would hope that would follow them throughout their lives. That is to be fair, honest, and treat everyone the same way that you would want to be treated. I ask that you be fair to all of us here tonight in your decision of an impact fee that makes sense. We would also like for you to look into other ways that we can share this impact fee with the entire business community of Clover and not just ours. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak in favor?
Hi, I'm Sherry Curlick. Oh, see, Jessica moved it. I'm Sherry Curlick. I live at 1111 Long Creek Court in Clover. And unlike most people here, I am not from Clover. My husband got a job transfer from Ohio. I was told I was moving to South Carolina. It scared the bejeebers out of me because we know schools down here aren't as good as northern schools. I called, I looked, I found my husband worked in Gastonia. I called Crowder's Creek from Ohio to say, where do I need to live to send my child to your school? Because that was the best school in the area. The person who answered the phone said to me, well, there's a development called River Hills, and there's a new development going in called The Landing. And those were my two options. Autumn Cove across the street had 3 houses in it. One was a spec one. Couldn't move there. That was 20 years ago. My 3 children all went through Clover from pre-K, well, kindergarten all the way through. 2 went to pre-K for free. If they had told me I had to pay a $15,000 fee to send my kids there, I would have written the check and been thrilled. All 3 of my children made it through 12 years in Clover schools. They made it through 4 years at 3 different universities and are doing very well. And I'm grateful for that. But coming from the north, I kind of call them like I see them. I'm on our Clover school district. We need to build new schools. It's going to cost us $190,000. I hate numbers. Poor Mr. Love, every meeting has to walk me through it, holding my hand. I'm very grateful that he does so. We are a very fiscally conservative school district. We spend an inordinate amount of time looking where we can save money, where we can put down money, so our bond referendums are not as big. At our last bond referendum, we had enough money, we could have built the elementary school with what the people on the board and the people working in the district saved. We're not trying to make money on this deal. We're trying to find the best way to pay for the schools. An impact fee will lower a bond that goes to everybody. Our businesses carry the lot of the operational costs for the schools, and this would help them out. So we did what we had to do. In math class, I was taught the quadratic formula, and they said, this is what it is. We went to the experts and said, we need to know what the impact fee is. There's an industry standard that they use to figure out an impact fee. It took them 5, maybe, 20, 30-minute presentations to get me to understand it. I'm not a numbers person, but that's how you calculate an impact fee. You can't change the way you calculate it because you don't like the number. I don't like the number, but that's what the number is. I couldn't go to a doctor and say, how much of my body has cancer, and have him say, well, it's really 80, but we're not going to count the part we don't like. We presented you with a legally justifiable number created by an expert in the field across the nation. And we gave that to you to say, this is what we have been told we need to educate the students in Clover. And now we're asking you to approve it. It's going to cost us $190,000. If we can collect some of that up front, that helps everybody. And I will end with a quote from my favorite, because it guided me, because when I heard $15,000, I didn't like it either. And it's been 18 months of adjusting to that number for me. And what it comes down to is the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one, from Mr. Spock. It's hard for the one, but the many need it in order to educate our kids and keep the tax dollars down for the residents in Clover. Now it's up to you to decide what that's going to be fair for the many.
Would anyone else like to speak in favor?
Good evening. My name is Rachel Johnson, and I am in favor of this proposed impact fee. The long and the short of it is, you've heard tonight what an amazing area we have, what foundation we have. We have had people on both sides of this impact fee concerns that have told you all the wonderful parts, and you've heard all the numbers and the data. And I think they're all wonderful, and we can talk about that number and those data and use them to our benefit no matter where we fall on this. But in the end, it comes down to our children. I've been in and around this area for the last 20 years, built the first house here in 2005. And in 2005, the #1 selling pitch that the person said to me was, "We have the best schools." We do. But the reality is, in 2005, when we built in Longley Estates, the growth has exploded. And we really have to start keeping up with that growth rate. Long story incredibly short, we can go back over a lot of that, but I'm not going to waste your time. The two things that bother me that we haven't actually spoken about is on slide number 7 that Dr. Quinn held up. She showed where we're already sitting with students in the classroom. This data was compiled before this pandemic, and I appreciate lumber costs and all these other costs for these builders, and I respect the challenges that the people are going through. But nobody stopped to say, how do these numbers affect those same students with the pandemic? Yes, Lauren's sitting at 75%. How do we get Lauren up to 100% capacity? How do we fill those butts in that school? We take care of spaces and decrease programming that we already use there. That's not acceptable. It's not acceptable to decrease our level of education so we can put more tushes in chairs. And we didn't speak about COVID. We haven't spoken about the distance we have to place between students or the lack of activity that they can have moving from classroom to classroom. So you're telling me to put more children in butts? We have to decrease those spaces too? And then how do we address COVID? This is our new normal. We are not going to turn back time and go back to how schools operated 5 years ago, 3 years ago, gosh, 6 months ago. But we do have to address our current needs. I love our children. I love our education system. In the last 20 years, and in my time here, my children are 11 and under. I'm so passionate about Lauren, it's not even funny. I've done PTO, I've done Girls on the Run, I've done School Improvement Council, and I'll probably stay and try to be involved as much as I can, even though my life will take me elsewhere, which is again why I'm here. All I'm asking you is to find a balance between the rapid growth rate and the need that we are already showing. The numbers are already showing that we have going on. We are not going to get a school built tomorrow, but we know that we have to plan for this for the next 4 to 5 years. That's all I can say. Thank you for your time tonight. I greatly appreciate it. Oh, the last thing that I would say is that I've worked in the Fort Mill district and the Fort Mill area, not necessarily the school, but in the area for the last 7 years. I've watched firsthand what's happened to that district and the reactive state that they've had to take instead of the proactive response that they could have taken. We're sitting in that opportunity of the growth and expansion rate. It's going to boom exponentially. We're already seeing the numbers. The reality is, I pray as a parent who is involved and who values what we currently have here, that we choose proactive instead of reactive. Thank you for your time.
I'm Vance Stein, live at 2718 Moton Road in Clover, a lifelong resident of Clover. The root of all of this problem tonight is on a law that passed in 2006, Act 388. And I'm sorry that the county council has the burden of dealing with this problem. It's a school problem, and I appreciate what the school has done in the school district, but Act 388 eliminated the funding for school operations that they're able to tax. So the impact fee is one of the tools that the schools have to deal with the problem of funding their operations. It's funding the building, but which helps the operations. But anyway, Act 388 is the problem. It's not going to be cured in Columbia. And so the impact fee is going to help the schools with this issue that they have. And it's not aimed at the builders. It's aimed at the new people coming into this area, which are going to be the majority of the new homes are going to be with new people. But anyway, just appreciate your consideration, and I'm sorry that you have to deal with it, but I appreciate you being here and dealing with it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in favor?
Good evening. My name is Perry Johnston. I live at 5001 Lake Mist Drive in Northeast Bethel. Mr. Chairman, members of council, county staff, Dr. Quinn, good to see you. You and your staff and consultants, thank you very much. Very informative. I think the 15,000 is a one size doesn't fit all type of number. I appreciate the people that say they've been here for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It's great. My ancestors came here in the 1770s, crossed over the Catawba River from Mecklenburg County into the new acquisition, which is now called York County. I'm planning on downsizing at some point. Certainly don't want to spend $15,000 after we've owned this property for hundreds of years. We're not the cause of this overbuild. So again, I just don't think there's one size fits all. I think a lesser impact fee, combination with the bond, but more especially I was very much interested in what Mr. Ziegler had to say. He has some very viable options on other revenue sources. Keep it real short. I appreciate what you're doing. I sat in your seat before. I'm glad I'm not sitting in it tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Mac McCarter, 1461 Paul Boyd Road. I know the evening is getting somewhat long, but as you can see, there's a lot of passion here tonight, especially from everyone who is sitting as you would in your own communities. The one thing that Clover School District and the community enjoys is the ability and everyone's coming together to work for the best purpose of what we're going for. And in this case, it's schools. And how do we provide the best education for the school, for the children within our district? The one thing we do not want to have happen is a topic like this to come up and be divisive, because the people who are here that are talking about on behalf of their profession sometimes doesn't actually equate to dollars out of mine. And I'm sympathetic to that, I'm concerning to that, and I'm sensitive to that. When we look at all kind of different ways of looking at raising funds, as you have to do, sometimes, as Mr. Johnston said, a one size does not fit all. So we have to look at different ways of raising those funds. As you say, the best society is an educated society. The one thing that we can do, and what we're proposing out here as from a school district, was to come up with what it costs to put a student in a seat. And how could that be supported? Not that anybody wants to pay that, $1 over that, but that was the task at hand, is what is that dollar figure? Now, the school board or the school district has presented that to y'all, and that's going to be in y'all's hands to decide what that number might be. But also heard in here tonight that we're all in this together, and we are, because I know folks on this panel up here on the council are looking at ways to combat what we're dealing with, because you're hearing it from stormwater, you're hearing it from other builders. The one thing that I do not see in this room tonight are the tract home builders, are the folks who don't pay and don't bring in local people to build local on local. The folks that I hear and that I know are folks that are local builders. And they're going to be impacted somewhat unless when they build a spec home, they are. If they're building a home for someone else, that is a cost. But it's also a cost to put students in a seat. The thing that we haven't really touched on tonight is uncontrolled growth. We're looking at solutions out here, and people are mentioning different ways to go about it. But the root cause of all this is growth that is uncontrolled. And that's what happened a lot to Fort Mill. You got an interstate running right down through there. You're sitting on Charlotte, Rock Hill, industry, perfect scenario for people to come and live. And they got behind the 8 ball. And it's tough. It's tough to be reactive versus proactive. The one thing we're looking at is what are the solutions that in combination that we can do to provide quality education for Clover School District. One thing that I heard proposed on tract home builders is to create a lot of green space. Because when you have 100 acres and 50% of it is green space, then their formula does not work. Those people do not come in and employ the sheetrock guys, the people who are doing the plumbing from local builders. So there's a solution to this, but it's going to take some impact fee. We don't know if you're going to grant all of that. We do know that is the number that it takes to put a kid in a seat on new construction, which at this time is an elementary school and a high school. And Dr. Quinn has already illustrated the numbers. Those are not just picked out of the air either. Those are numbers that were generated last year, and we're also seeing that we're ahead of that curve. So we're either going to have to increase classroom size, or we're going to have to do some other things to allow education to continue. Is education going to go away? No. But we need to be proactive. So take those numbers, look at them, but the big deal here is uncontrolled growth, or not having smart growth. So take that into consideration, and we appreciate your time, we appreciate your support, and we certainly appreciate being a part of Clover School District. Thank you.
Tom Smith, 938 Timber Creek Drive, York, South Carolina. Raised 4 kids, and Alice and I did in the Clover School District. Alice currently teaches virtual kindergarten. So our house has been reshuffled into a classroom. But, you know, I know Mac, I know Billy, I know most of these people in this room. I mean, we're vested, we're like this, and it has caused a lot of heartache and conflict. Vance is my insurance guy, right? He just spoke. And I'm like, Vance, well, how are you throwing this on us? But the main thing is just what Max said, is if we don't control the growth and slow it down with the mass production, then we're going to be looking at more impact fees, we're going to be looking at more schools, more road congestion, more sewer lines down to Rock Hill. That's the essence of the problem. And you guys have actually taken a step. Allison put the moratorium in place. We got to get to the root of the issue. How do we control growth? Because if we don't, then the local industry that supplies a lot of local jobs, that has been around for 30 some odd, most of these builders have been around not 15 years, 12 years, 40, 30 years. I mean, so, but we know all these folks intimately, you know. I've worked with Sherry at CAP for many years. I was the meat guy that handed out meat, and I don't know how many funnel cakes I've cooked at the football games, but I've retired, thank God. So anyhow, we're just speaking from the heart. We need your help. But the slowdown of the mass grade, the 50% green space, open space, would go one step to back those guys off that really are the essence of what's going on here today. So thank you for your time. I didn't really want to speak tonight, but have a good evening.
Anyone else in favor? Is there a motion to close public hearing? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, hearing none. Before there is a motion, we're going to take a very quick 5-minute break. We will be back. We're going to take a 5-minute break.
Yeah, I mean, you can't even see. Oh my God, I gotta finish this lifesaver.
All right.
I've learned to tie Windsor. I would have. When I was 15 years old. Nobody in my family ever wore a bow tie, but I like bow ties.
I can teach you to tie a bow tie in 5 minutes.
That's what he said. You can tie your shoes, you can do it.
You can tie, bow ties, in fact, it's easier to tie a bow tie on somebody than it is yourself. I mean, I can put a bow tie on my son in 20 seconds. With me, I end up slowing down. It probably takes me about 30, 45 seconds. I mean, it literally takes me double the amount of time.
When you're tying it on someone else, it's exactly like tying
Oh, it is, and it's just, and you learn by tying it on your thigh. That's how you learn how to tie one. You tie it 3 or 4 times on your thigh, you got it down. It's really easy.
I think we all should wear a suit.
Hey, Christy.
Next meeting.
I'm sorry.
Here we go.
Didn't realize I was on hot
Hear that,
mic.
Mike? We all need to wear a seersucker next meeting.
It's post-Labor, it's post-Labor Day.
I know.
It's a subtle act of
Then we'll all be carpetbaggers. We are going to resume our meeting. Is there a motion as to second reading?
Chairman Johnson, I make a motion to approve an impact fee for the Clover School District in the amount of $4,000 and have it take effect January 10th, 2021.
Second.
To be clear, what you have simply done is amended the 3 fees and have one fee for $4,000 for all 3, correct?
No.
It's a universal fee.
No,
Residential.
that's just the top number, and the other ones would fall in line with that. That's on the
Percentage?
yes.
Same percentage?
Mhm. Yes.
So it's,
Sorry about that.
so it's $4,000 for a single-family detached dwelling unit, and then a proportional amount for multifamily and mobile home based on a percentage of that.
Yes, thank you.
We wanted to make sure the motion is clear. And there is a second to that motion. Any discussion? Ms. Love?
Yes. So we are really fortunate to have great schools in Clover. I believe everybody in the room has at least one thing in common, that is the support of the children of District 2. I made notes, so I normally just talk, and y'all probably don't want to sit through all of that. So tonight's hearing, though, is about how we as a community fund capital projects like schools and admin building, buses, and more. The Clover School District is unique, and we do differ from the Fort Mill School District, where the decision was made more easily because that area is consistent from one side to the other. Driving across District 2 is like driving across a cross-section of York County. We have one side of the district that is very residential, dense residential, commercial, more commercial, and we have another area of the district, because our area actually falls over into District 3, and that is in the Bethany area where it's very rural and very agricultural still. So we are, as a couple of people said tonight, and we're all obviously in the agreement because it's written in my notes, but the average value of homes in District 2 varies greatly between Lake Wiley and Bethany. The values reflected in the study do not take into account custom homes or those in big, larger subdivisions that are sold before they are built. It only takes into consideration those homes that wind up in the MLS. We are not a one-size-fits-all community. There are other elements to consider. Maybe it sounds good to have the people who are not here yet as residents pay for the impact growth has on our schools, but included in that are some who have paid the price for many years and may be moving to the countryside or just now in a position to build a home. Retired couples and those without children who choose to build a home here won't negatively impact schools, yet will incur a fee. Age-restricted developments will be excluded, but single-family homes being built on larger lots by individuals 55 and over will incur a fee. $4,000 is the highest number I feel the western side of the district can bear without adversely affecting the growth on that side of the district. January 10th, 2021 is a reasonable start date, so people planning to build have notice and four months lead time to acquire a permit. That takes a little time sometimes. I want to be brief tonight. And I want to say that there are several things that people all go through in life. A first car, an engagement ring. I do remember a 10% luxury tax on that at one time. And that was in a house, buying their first home, building their first home sometimes, and then a retirement home. So I as the representative of the entire Clover School District, that little piece down in Bethany that Robert, but as the representative from District 2, I have to take care of everybody in the district. I have to do what's right for everybody. And if everybody came into this room and sat down, and I said, this section's going to be for the group that thinks this, and this section's going to be for the group that thinks this, and this section over here is going to be for this group that thinks this, and everybody's passionate about what they think and how they feel, but I have to be the person who puts something together that's palatable to everyone. And I've put a lot of time and effort into this. I've been to all of the, not all 25, because those were mostly neighborhood things, I think, but I've been to the major presentations that Dr. Quinn has done. I have looked at all of the different presentations. I have talked to people in the community. I've heard from a lot of people who are planning to build a home. Maybe they've moved to the Lake Wiley side and they feel like now, you know, it's really a little busy here and we'd like to have a little more land. That's a very common thing. So I've talked to those people and they're very concerned about how long do we have? That's the question that they would ask me. And I think that's a, you know, I hate for somebody to ask me a question like that because I don't want them to feel like they have a limited time to do something that might be a lifelong dream for them. I want to mention a couple of things that some people said tonight. You know, a lot of people are concerned about the taxes they pay themselves, and I understand that. I don't have children, and I got a tax bill the other day on a new vehicle that was $1,000, and $700 of that was for schools. I pay the tax for schools. I've always paid the tax. It's not something that is like, oh, my, yeah, well, sometimes it is, oh my gosh. But you know what? People happily pay that tax, and I think the resonating message tonight is that people support the Clover School District. And I mean, maybe we have a great school district because we've got such great support for our schools. And we've got people, you know, teachers and a school board and staff and people that are working really hard to make those schools great. Because the only way you get the support like that is by doing the right things. But I feel like these impact fees across the board, in all areas, there are a lot of inequalities within those. They're not flexible. They don't allow us to do the things that reasonable people come up and speak to us and say, you know, maybe you could make this a little different. Maybe you could tax a lot of people, you know, just maybe you could tax the people that just have kids, or maybe you could tax the people that I mean, or not tax, but you know, charge the people who just have this or just have that, and all kinds of different ideas, you know, several brought before us tonight. Well, the impact fee plan does not allow for that. So, you know, we are a very family-oriented area, York County, but especially those areas, you know, the western part of the county. Those people have a lot of land. They didn't just get here. They've been here for a long time, and a lot of them expect their kids to come back. You know, they may be second and third generations living on those lands, and I feel like they should be able to take for granted the fact that they are able to build on their land and not incur $15,000 impact fee. I mean, isn't that what you would want for your children if they came back and, you know, you had 100 acres and you wanted them to be able to build a house and you've lived there your whole life? Would you want them to have to pay $15,000? And people say, you know, for somebody building a house that's $600,000 or $700,000, $15,000 is not that much. $15,000 is the car that their teenager, that might be that first car for that teenager. It is a lot of money. So I have to look at that. I have to weigh everything. Honestly, I'm the person that's between the rock and a hard place on this because I care about the schools. I want the schools to be able to build more schools. And at the same time, I ran for council because I thought the growth was just overwhelming us. And obviously, that's where we are. I was right, and we all know that. So one thing that was said tonight that kind of rung a bell was that this is aimed at new people. And you can aim at the new people, but when you miss and you hit somebody that's been here their whole life, that's a problem. And I can't support a fee that's $15,000. I believe that we have a great community, and what I've heard tonight is that the community is willing to vote for a referendum, get behind these schools, and everybody share in the wealth of our schools. And that's my personal philosophy, and that's how I see growth paying for growth, as we're all going to grow. Our schools are going to grow, and I don't believe that it's the new people that are coming here. If I did believe that, you know, my question would have been, hey, can we back this up about 8 years and charge everybody that moved here in the last 8 years? And because that's where the impact began. And, you know, we can't do anything about that. We've encouraged these people to come. The chamber, the schools are great. We've drawn the people here, and now we want to charge them when they want to build a home. I just can't support that. So I support the schools, I support the children, I support the people, and I support a referendum that is fair across the board for everyone.
Mr. Roddy.
I think we sat here a little over a year and a half, maybe a year and a half to 2 years ago, and I never would have thought I would be so educated as to how this process works. I've truly become educated on impact fees because this is our second time going through it. We've gotten a lot of information, we've got a lot thrown at us, but one thing that's obviously clear about York County, and I say this to everybody that I meet outside of Rock Hill and York County, is that we have something that the world wants to be a part of here. That's our schools, our community, our family-based communities that we have here, great educational systems in Rock Hill and York County, in spite of what we're seeing across the state. But we put out a product that's so good, people are moving here to be a part of it. And it should be a true testament to our teachers, to everyone who serves in this community. So people want to be a part of something good, and I can't blame them for wanting to move here. But at the same time, there are unintended consequences when a lot of people move here and want to be a part of what we have going on. And I wish there was a way that we could incorporate some of the many ideas that we've heard from the Fort Mill proposal all the way up to this proposal. If we could just have an impact fee for someone building a home for a kid. Who's going to have kids in the school system? We can't do that. Just as Allison spoke just a second ago, it would be nice if we had some wiggle room as to how we could structure this, but we don't. And so now coming up with a fee, an impact fee across the board that makes sense for everybody to take part in. And I think starting out at $4,000 now is kind of the proactive way to do it. Unlike the Fort Mill situation where the schools were already busting at the seams across the board. They were building schools, seems like every 2 or 3 years. They were having bond referendums every 2 or 3 years. I think Clover has recognized the need for more schools to keep pace with the growing trend. If $4,000 doesn't work over the next couple years, who's to say that we can't increase that number? So I don't want people who fully support the $15,000 to feel like they've been slighted in a major way, because this can only increase if the needs are not met for the Clover School District. So I don't want people to feel like the Clover schools can't survive or won't survive, but if anything comes back down the road in the short-term future or the long-term, that we can revisit this and increase that number. You know, to go from a zero impact fee to $15,000 will be a huge stretch. And will there be communities in the Clover and Lake Wiley area that could bear a $15,000 additional price tag on the price of a home? Certainly there could be. But what about that homeowner who was looking to get a home built, a more modest home, maybe something in the $100,000 range or $150,000? Now we've just taken that to $165,000 range. That's going to be a lot more impact on that home versus someone looking to buy a $600,000 home, or I guess what I've heard, maybe the going average rate in the area was probably $400,000 coming up over in certain parts of the area. But someone mentioned about how Act 388 has burdened some of our school situation. That's true. Someone mentioned about, the state not really fully kicking in to support the busing system, that's an issue, so we can do some other things to help shore up some shortcomings through our state delegation that can help our local schools, and we're certainly not opposed to reaching out to those men and women who serve in Columbia. I just really wish we could find a mechanism that we could put in place locally that will allow us to have a little more wiggle room. But my message here tonight for supporting the $4,000 versus the $15,000 is that we can always come back and revisit this and increase it if it doesn't meet the needs of the Clover School District going forward. So with that being said, that's why I second the motion, and I'll support the $4,000 impact fee.
Mr. Winkler.
All right, thank you. First of all, I want to apologize. I am trying to do what my doctor says and improve my health a little bit, lose some weight, and drink a lot more water during the day. And when you drink a lot more water during the day, it means you go to the bathroom a lot more times when you're sitting in a long council meeting. So I apologize for that and getting up as often as I have. I'm going to jump around a little bit on this, and I apologize because I was making notes all over the place as people were talking. First of all, I just want to say I respect our builders. I appreciate our builders. I come from a long line of builders in the North Georgia mountains. My grandfather was a spec builder, and my dad was a residential builder. He did not do spec. He did mostly, custom. My uncle on my mother's side was a custom home builder. They've all retired or unfortunately passed on. My grandfather on my father's side was a painter. So they were in the business when you say they were a home builder. They did the plumbing, the wiring, the carpentry, everything. They were licensed to do all of it. There wasn't a lot of subcontracting back then. And I'm blessed enough to have grown up and learned how to do a lot of that myself. A few things I want to mention tonight. There's been numbers all over the place, and one of the things that was said was, talking about the impact fee to, as a tool to slow growth. That's not what the impact fee is designed for. The impact fee is not something that's supposed to slow growth. It is something that's supposed to make growth pay for growth, if you follow what the state has said with it. But it is not a tool necessarily to slow growth. We have made several changes as a council over the last year or two to work on slowing growth in the Lake Wiley area and improving that growth in the Lake Wiley area through zoning changes, through what we're working on right now with a small area plan, and the moratorium that's in place right now while we get that small area plan in place. I believe that will slow some of the growth. I believe that, we may be out of it by now, but I don't think so. Everybody talked about a recession or a coming recession. We put this country in a recession a few months ago with COVID and with the shutdown that we had to do to try to get it under control. If you look at the definition of a recession, we went into a recession earlier this year. Over the next 20 years of the bond referendum that school district will be putting out in the next few years, in a couple of years, there'll be at least probably 2 or 3 more recessions that'll come along. Recessions are a normal part of the business cycle. Those recessions, the current recession, what's going on, will slow some of the building on its own. And so I'm going to talk about a few other numbers. I represent the Bethany Santiago is the way I've always said it, instead of Santiago, but area of the Clover School District, and that is the area that is a little slower growing. That's not the area where May Green is building the $500,000 and $600,000 homes all the time. Not to pick on May Green, but they do great work and wonderful developments. But Clover is much different, in my opinion, than Fort Mill was when we were looking at Fort Mill a few years ago. Fort Mill is a much more concentrated, much more homogeneous type of district than Clover School District is. You've got opposite ends of the spectrum here in the Clover School District between the unincorporated Lake Wiley area and the unincorporated Bethany Santiago area. There's a whole, huge difference in the price of homes and the sizes of homes and all of that between those two areas. To talk a little bit about some of the numbers that are been thrown around tonight, and as a financial advisor, I always tell people you should never, and I don't do mortgages, but you should never take on a mortgage that ties up more than 30% of your income. And that's kind of what the poverty line is, or the line that was used tonight. There's probably plenty of lenders out there that'll tell you can do 35 or more, but I think 30 is a maximum you should do. If we look at those numbers, and one of the gentlemen mentioned earlier, the numbers in this study show a 20% down payment. There are very few people that I've known over the years, especially at the median income level that we're talking about, that have 20% to put down on a home. Most of them are happy if they can do 10, but a big majority of them are probably FHA or some of the other programs that allow them to do 4 or 5% down. If you keep the payment the same of what was used in this study and you do 4% down, then you can only afford to buy a $160,000 home and keep your payment the same as the $1,400 and some change that's used in this study. If you do 10% down, then you can move up some, and you can do about about a $200,000 home, somewhere in that range. If you do 20% down, then yes, their numbers work, but like I said, that's not the average, especially when you talk about a median income that we're talking about. And median income means that 50% of the people in this school district make less than that income amount. When you talk about median, that's not the average, that's the middle of the road. Half the school district makes more than that, half the school district makes less than that. So, and I would venture to say that most of that 50% that makes less than that probably lives in the Bethany Santiago area. I believe I heard the number somewhere that somewhere over 30% is on free and reduced type lunches, or the lower income even than the median. When you talk about a mobile home with the amount we're talking about, or even the person who can put 4% down and can afford a $160,000 home, if you put $15,000 impact fee on that $160,000 home, they can no longer afford it. I think as a council member, I was told something a long time ago, I don't remember exactly who it was, but they said, if you make people on both sides of the aisle upset at you, then you're probably making the vote about where you should be. So, I appreciate our home builders. I don't think the number that was given tonight in the motion is something I can support, because I don't see how to back that number up with anything other than the fact that our friends, the home builders, have probably, that they've stood to their word when we did Fort Mill impact fee and said, if that's the fee, we'll sue you, and they did. Probably this is somewhere around a fee that they said, we probably can be comfortable with this and we won't sue you. It's not our job to legislate to a lawsuit threat or that type thing. I think, like I said, our job is to kind of upset everybody on both sides of the aisle and find something in the middle. With that said, some of the numbers that I have issues with is I don't think personally, when I counsel people, that buses, boats, cars, campers, those types of items are capital items. So I would say you take those out. At best, you reduce it by 20 to 25%, because the price of the buses from the original impact fee plan to this one that's current now went up by about 20 to 25%. So at best, you take that out, but I say buses, boats, campers, that type thing, RVs, are not capital, so those should not be in there. Now, I want to say, I won't say should not be in there, because what the consultant's job is to calculate, and Dr. Quinn's there, the maximum amount that can be charged by law. Now, just because it can be charged doesn't mean it should be charged. If you own a business and you figure out the maximum amount you can squeeze out of somebody, and that's what you decide to charge everybody that walks in the door, that's not a good way to do business. So just because it's the maximum that can be doesn't, in my opinion, believe it should be. So buses are one of the issues I have with it. I believe I heard it said that the plan for the new schools is to put on some existing land that's in Daimler property already that you own. I know that the state law allows you to calculate the cost of that land, because you will someday have to go out and buy more land to do another school. But that is not a current impact, in my opinion, on this plan for this cost of these schools, because you own that land already. So again, if you remove those land costs and the buses, that reduces its impact fee by somewhere around 27 to 28, 29%, depending on what numbers you want to use. And one of the things about numbers is you can always massage them to where they'll tell you most whatever you want them to tell you. Or I think as, I think it was Will Rogers said, if you torture them long enough, they'll tell you whatever you want to hear. But if you move the buses and the land out, that reduces that impact fee by somewhere between 27 to 30%. If you look at the fact that there will be, I believe, some one or two recessions, what we've done to slow down growth already will lessen the impact on that. I cannot support a number that is the maximum that we can just because we can. I cannot support a number that is a number that we hope will keep us from getting sued just because that's a number we hope that will do that. What I can support, based on what I recommend removing and what I believe will be a slower growth over time between those different percentages, because I believe we will see between the changes we've made on or making on open space and other things, we will see a reduction in our growth going forward, and the growth in the school district is going up, but it is not at this point an exponential growth, and I don't believe it will be. It's more of a linear growth, and I believe it will be even slower with everything we put in. What I could support tonight with all of those figures calculated in would be a reduction of each impact fee for each of the three categories by 50%. Again, I think that's probably not going to make the school district happy, probably not going to make the builders happy, but that is something that makes sense to me looking at the numbers. And when you take out those different items and you look at that, that reduces the percentage that it costs. I also have a couple of questions just when we look at the difference in the bond referendum that was talked about, of possibly being 190 million coming up. And if we do the full impact fee, it will reduce to 140, 150 million. That's about a 25% reduction in the bond issuance. But we're talking about a 47% reduction in the tax bill. That confused me a little bit. So those are all things that I looked at and numbers that I wrote down tonight in looking at this, that I will not support the maximum, and I will not support the motion on the floor tonight. Actually, what I'll do, and we'll see if it works, but is I will make the motion to amend that motion to reduce all three impact fees by 50% across the board.
There is a motion to amend. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. I want to clarify this motion just so that, just as I tried to do with the earlier one, that would put single family at 7517, multifamily at 3715, and mobile homes at 4921, using rough half math. Okay. Provided by Dr. Black.
Rough guess. Rough guess.
There is a first and a second. Mr. Winkler, you still have the floor.
Like I said, I don't know much else to say about that. I went over some of the numbers fairly quickly. on why I did that. Again, I don't believe that just because you can charge the maximum, you should. I believe the school district needs help. Unfortunately, Act 388 has hurt all of our school districts. We can't fix that tonight. We can't change that. That's something Columbia will have to do, and it won't ever happen, I don't believe, in my lifetime. So we have to work with what we have, but I just don't believe that just because you can throw everything in there and charge the maximum you can, you should. But I do believe that the school district needs help, and I believe an impact fee is a way to do that. I hope that our friends, the builders, will work with us and come to some agreement on that instead of, if it even passes tonight, and it may not pass, but that's, I've pretty much laid out my reasons for it, so.
Chairman Johnson,
Hang on one second.
I call for the vote.
The person who made the second gets to speak. Mr. Hamilton.
I'll defer to Councilwoman Love. Honestly, Robert made an excellent case, and I just wanted to hear Allison's discussion or any other comments on it.
There is a first and a second as to the amendment to reduce the impact fee by 50%. 50%. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
No.
Motion fails. We are back to the original motion. Would anyone else like to speak? Ms. Cox.
Well, that was interesting. Twist. First of all, I'd like to say to the folks who are out here and the ones who got up and got the gumption and the guts to come speak, I want you to know that I heard you. I share your concerns about growth management, and I appreciate you coming out. It takes, there's a lot of folks that complain about things or have comments about things, but for folks to come out and actually sit through a meeting like this, it speaks volumes to me, and I appreciate you being here. I hope that you will show up when we have other issues, because what I heard you say is growth management is the concern. It's my concern as well. There are other issues that are pending before council that we need you to come and we need you to support, and it includes the open space requirement. That's something that really is a big issue that's going to come before the council. I also want to say, Dr. Quinn, I don't think that the Clover School District could have any better advocate than you. You're professional, you're passionate. It's clear that you're here because you believe in what you're here for and that what you're trying to do is in the best interest of the school district. I respect you for that. The way that I kind of view this, impact fees are one of the tools to ensure that new growth pays for growth, and that's something I support, and I support an impact fee. My concern in this is that if you raise the fee too high or you set it too high, then higher than the community can bear, and if you set it at a rate that disproportionately affects a small group within a certain industry, you make the growth management problem worse. You actually make it worse because you target the small business owner, the low impact developer, the ones who are in the trenches with us, who are trying to come up with solutions to solve this growth management problem. These are people that if your house gets messed up, they live next door to you and you can go knock on their door and you can tell them of what for. And so they have a unique responsibility and commitment to the community. And what you end up doing is potentially creating an atmosphere where the only people that can afford to develop are those who are wealthy and are high impact and are looking at the bottom line. And I don't think that's what we want. I'm not interested in doing that. And that's the concern that I have with this. I'll also say that I think the number, it sounds to me like we're in the ballpark together of what the chamber has proposed between 4 to 6. We're now at 7,500. To me, that we're in a realm where we all can, have some meaningful discussion before third reading. But the small developers, Brian Grissom, Bo Ziegler, Tom Heline, Johnny Nealons, Tom Smith, now Quinn Smith, you did a great job. The reason why they've earned some credibility in my eyes is because for the past 2 or 3 years, they have been at the meetings. They have actually been suggesting things that are adverse to their own interest. They've been suggesting open space requirements so that we can get a handle on that and helping us come up with a solution. I appreciate that. That is something that speaks volumes to me, and that adds credibility to the things that they're saying to me. So I don't know where the final number ends up, but I support the motion on the floor. I'm committed to making sure that we make a good decision that supports all of us. I don't think we can use impact fees as the sole way to solve this problem, and that's where I stand.
Dr. Blackwell. You know, I appreciate the, like everybody else has said, the drive for education. I mean, certainly anybody with any common sense is going to support education. I've had 8 years on the Rock Hill School Board and 4 years on the State Board of Education. So certainly I may know too much about education. But I appreciate the motion that Ms. Love made, because I would not have supported anything higher than that. I applaud the Clover School District in trying to plan ahead. I wonder a little bit if Fort Mill had not been in such a fix and had to do what they did, if this would even come about right now with any other school district. So I worry a little bit about the cascade effect, but here again, I certainly appreciate Clover trying to plan ahead and not get in the position that the Fort Mill School District has been in real serious situation. But I would like to ask Mr. Kendry. Yes, sir. And this is going back to Fort Mill, but, and I know I've mentioned it back during that debate, but what was the decision about people say that lived here 5 years or longer and they just wanted to build a new house versus the new residents that just moved here? What was the final way the Fort Mill impact fee was handled?
That doesn't have that component in it. The fee is attributable.
It is what it is. New house, it is.
Yes.
Well, I was asking, I was wondering if
There's
there
the
was
target 55 and older exemption, which is in the Fort Mill senior, but other than that, that is the loan provision.
So in the Fort Mill one, it had 55 and over, they don't have to pay it, is that what you're saying?
There's a waiver process
Or
that
is
they
it
have to
for
go
a-
through to demonstrate, and it goes to the county manager.
Is that for a senior complex or an individual situation?
Senior complex.
Senior complex. Is that part of your consideration, Allison?
It's in the,
It's,
yeah.
okay. And in terms of the lawsuit, I know it's on appeal. Is it logical for us to be doing this at this time?
The impact fee was upheld at the trial level, and the matter is being briefed, and briefs have been filed in the Supreme Court, and that will be pending. Separate analysis, separate fee. The procedural ordinance is not an issue substantively in the Fort Mill appeal, so it's principally the statutory underpinning and the actual fee itself in Fort Mill, and I don't think it is imprudent to proceed at this juncture.
Mr. Hamilton.
There's not a whole lot that hasn't been said tonight. We've heard a lot of passionate arguments on both sides. I, however, have a fundamental problem with the argument that seems to have been made in support, is that new children coming into the district should bear the cost of their education. That model exists and is called private schools. That is not the model that is attributable to a public school. So if that's the argument, then I just, at a fundamental level, couldn't support an impact fee. I'll also say that Clover is just not Fort Mill. Fort Mill had unexpected exponential growth. The worst case scenarios that we saw tonight were far more linear than exponential, and not too far off from what has been historical and what should already be planned for. You know, Robert made several good points about what the number should be. I don't know that we're going to come to what the number should be tonight. I can hold my nose and support an impact fee that this community seems to support as a whole, and that number seems to be what Councilwoman Love suggested. I don't know that that's going to be the number that we end up with, but I'm willing to support that number tonight. for the sake of discussion, we continue to move forward with this. But as I said, I just have a fundamental problem with the logic being that the children attending the school need to bear the cost of their education.
3,300 units will be built between 2020 and 2025, and you're looking eventually at a debt, if you pass your 2021 referendum, of $190 million. As someone who lives in the Fort Mill School District, I can only dream of a $190 million debt for our schools. We are at excess of $650 million, and it's about 75% of my tax bill. The impact fee was the only solution at that time to attempt to bring that number down and to get it to a reasonable level. I think some of the most lucid comments I heard tonight were the fact that this is a tract builder driven problem. We, in attempting to correct that, will punish small builders. It is how government somewhat works. It can't work with a scalpel. Instead, it works with a machete. We have to find a solution to slow down tract builders and encourage our local builders to be able to grow and to do more. And whether that number is 4,000 or 7,500 or 6 or whatever the number ends up being, this council has to get at some point very serious. I'd like to see us adopt in the coming months, before I leave in December, I'd like to see us adopt the 50% open space rule. I don't know how many small builders have to come to us and propose it for us to finally get on board with it. I can live with 4,000. I have no problem with 4,000. I could have lived with 7,500. Ultimately, the goal here is to keep debt from overwhelming the school district. And I can promise you, if you keep building a school every few years, you'll wake up and every business you have will have an issue. Because in Fort Mill, when companies want to move to Fort Mill, we have to freeze their taxes for 20 to 30 years. Lock them in place just to attract them to get them to come there. Because that's how bad our tax system has gotten. And you have to constantly raise taxes every 2 to 3 years to build 2 to 3 schools, not a school, 2 to 3 more schools. An impact fee, again, is simply a machete. It'd be nice to use a scalpel, but I'm going to support this. I fully support this. I want this to pass, but I also want us to get very serious about fixing and working with our local builders to create an environment in which they can succeed. And it's not just about somebody coming in and clear cutting 200-300 acres at a time and getting to decide the fate of York County while they head back north of the border, typically to another country. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed? No. Motion passes. There is no need for executive session. I will remind everyone that third and final reading will be Monday, September the 8th. Tuesday, September the 8th. Yeah.
Motion to close.
There is a motion to close. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.